archetypes like the Lucario Melmetal or the sort of Decidueye style archetypes. And of course, Escape Rope is a really huge item card as well, coming back, reintroduced into the game, which can really cause some interesting interactions with bench management. We know how important boss's orders can be for game plans. Sometimes a rope can be just as good, and it's in a trainer form.
Absolutely. It's going to be really, really fantastic. I mean, it's going to be a big, big difference from what we saw in the region finals. Introducing battle styles is going to be a huge shake-up. And the great thing is that these players have not had very much prep time at all. It's a brand new set. There was not much prep time to have. There have been some very big tournaments over in Taiwan and Japan. There have been official tournaments in this meta game, but really, for these players, the amount of information to go on is comparatively low, so it really is first impressions, and of course, 16-player tournament. It means that there's a lot of guesswork as to, well, what are the other guys going to be playing?
Yeah, it's one of those things, the balancing act of, do I take the deck that did well for me to get me through the region finals and just make some tweaks here and there? Or do I just go gun-ho, say that a brand new archetype is good enough to give me the best chance to win? So some risk aversion to sort of high-risk, high-reward strategy is going to be in here as well. So the players have a lot to figure out.
They really do. Speaking of figuring out, we need to figure out the format in which we're going to be playing, and we've got a lovely video here to show you to explain a bit more about it.
Hello, trainers! We are going to break down how the Pokemon Players Cup 3 will play out and what it's going to take to make it to the finals in April. Let's get started.
The switch into the Spiritomb, Anguish Cry able to do plenty of damage to pick up the K.
That weakness policy, but here comes the high horsepower and Medical takes all with 2 health.
Yeah, over the Leech Seed to all 2 in a row. Look at this. HP just melts away.
Our trainers are competing for future travel awards and to see who comes out on top, playing Pokemon Sword and Shield on the Nintendo Switch, Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, and Pokémon Tournament DX. Online qualifiers took place for Pokemon Sword and Shield and Pokemon Trading Card Game Online to fill the trainer pool with nearly 1,000 of the best trainers from the 4 different regions: North America, Europe, Latin America, and Oceania. The match rules are simple. Every match will be a best of 3 and part of a double elimination bracket. For the video game and trading card game online, the top 4 from each regional qualifier will advance to the global finals. For Pokémon Tournament DX, the top 4 from North America, 3 from Europe, and 1 from Oceania will advance. The global finals bracket will take place in April for all 3 competitions. Top 16 for video game, top 16 for the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, and top 8 for Pokémon Tournament DX. And every player who makes the global finals starts fresh in a new double elimination bracket. This will give those mistakes a second chance and be a real push to prove you are the best online. Which region will present the best trainer, and which trainer will take home the champion title? Who is going to be our Players Cup 3 champion? Tune in and follow the action at Pokemon.com/play.
I mean, personally here, I am really, really excited to see these new cards. Victini, Rapid Strike Urshifu, that for me is exactly what I want to be seeing here. We are really going to be shaping up this format, this meta game. It's very, very exciting. I mean, what are you expecting, Joe? Are we going to be seeing these really taking over, or is it going to be a little more, they're here, but we're not quite so sure?
I think they're coming out of the gate fast from some unofficial tournaments that we've had online. They've been doing really well, seeing a lot of success. I know some of the players that have made it into the global finals, they've been playing some of these unofficial tournaments online and been doing really well with, you know, specifically the Rapid Strike build. So I really do think the card is good enough to stand on its own 2 feet in the meta and challenge some of the most popular decks in the format. We know that Eternatus VMAX, very popular. Pikachu and Zekrom archetypes are very popular. You have really good weakness on those sorts of cards. So it's really worth putting into your deck. There is a bit of a strange type matchup going on because, of course, Mewtwo and Mew can be teched into a lot of archetypes. There's also Jirachi GX in the mix. So it is a bit of a puzzle for some sort of players. Even the Mimikyu tech as well, maybe many people could be using to shut off Mewtwo and Mew GX as well from being effective. So there's a lot of puzzle pieces moving in right now, and I think Victini VMAX is just kind of good on its own. It's just a very efficient card, kind of overtakes the place of Center Scorch that it used to have in the format because it just needs less to get going and is super efficient at what it does.
Yeah, as soon as I saw Victini V Max, I was a huge fan. I was hoping it wasn't going to be one of those cards that I was hyping up and overrating. Seems like I'm not. Now, we are going to be having a few days here of wonderful action for you. Let's take a quick look at the broadcast schedule so you can see exactly when you can catch up with us. Unfortunately, already missed the 10th and 11th region finals, but the good news is this is the first of 3 days of global finals coming to you on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of April.
Yep, so let's go ahead and see what prizes are on the line for our global finalists. The top 4 players in the global finals will receive travel awards for a future international championship of their choosing. So just a few wins away for all of these players to have a really awesome prize at the end. And eligible players who participate in the region qualifiers receive special in-game deck boxes and sleeves in PTCGO, so they can show off their accomplishments to the world.
Sounds pretty good to me. So let's take a quick look back then at how these players actually made it into the global finals here. If we start off with North America and we start off with the winners bracket, we saw that Kevin Kruger made it all the way through the winners bracket without losing with that Decidueye deck, which I don't think many people were expecting to see. And then we saw Azul come through as well, playing one of those Welder Fire decks.
And then through the losers side in North America, we see Mike Fouché was able to make it through with Pikachu and Zekrom, and Andres was able to make it through with Eternatus VMAX as well.
Moving over then into the European bracket, we do see that we again had a couple of undefeated players make it through. We saw that Frederico did get all the way through with an Eternatus deck, and we saw that Luca did also make it through playing that ADPZ deck, that Arcus and Dialga and Palkia deck, which some people love and some people maybe not so much.
Yeah, and then on the loser side, Davide fell late on in the winners, but was able to close out that losers bracket, also using that ADP Zacian deck. And then Tord Reklev with his Excadrill control that secretly also takes prizes, made it all the way through the losers bracket. So it'll be interesting to see if he sticks to his guns with that sort of wacky deck, or if he makes a change up for the global finals.
That will be very interesting indeed. If we do move on, then we can have a look at another region. Let's look at the Latin American region. We do see that Giovanni did make it through there with that Center Scorch deck, which, as you've said, Joe, really has fallen out of favor since Victini V Max came along and proved to be, frankly, better. And Joaquin did make it through with that Pikarom deck, which will probably never fall out of favor.
And Matthias in the losers side is playing Eternatus V Max and made it through, as well as Lucas Matthias, who is playing, or was playing, the Lucario Melmetal to make it through. One of those decks that really is challenged by some of the newcomers, the Victinis out there, as well as just the tech card of Phoebe coming in, being able to be teched into, Eternatus decks and the like. One of the reasons why it made it so far through the region finals was that it was a really solid wall against some of the most popular decks. May not be the case in this new format.
Absolutely. Things are changing a lot with Battle Styles coming around. And that just means we need to take a quick look at the Oceania region here and see the players that made it through there. And we did see that Jack made it all the way through the winners bracket undefeated, playing one of those welder-based fire decks. And Jeremy did make it through as well, playing that Pikarom deck, which, as we've said at this stage, it's just never going away.
Yeah, and Mitch was also able to do the same thing, riding his way through, finishing off high in the winners bracket, and then was just able to get through on that last chance in the losers bracket, also playing Pikachu and Zekrom. And David was able to get through with a Eternatus variant using Weavile GX, which is certainly not the most common, but proving why it's powerful as well.
Now, I enjoyed that deck an awful lot. So that's how they made it through to the global finals. Now we're in the global finals. Let's take a look at those top 4 players from each region, and we can see what they're playing now. Starting off with North America, we see a lot of new decks. Kevin Kruger is playing a Victini V Max deck, and then we've got Azul and Mike, who are both playing those Rapid Strike Urshifu V Max decks, while Andres Gabaldon just sticks with the old favorite Eternatus, although we can see that weakness guard energy, probably not a coincidence with all of these fighting bears running around.
yeah, even the current decks in the format are having to adapt, and Andres has identified that quite smartly. Awesome to see so much Rapid Strike already from the North American region. As we pass it on over to the next region, we'll see if anyone else is playing brand new archetypes. From the European side, a little bit of tried and trusted in there as well. You can see that Davide Innocenti, as well as Luka Kleberdechka, are both playing ADP Zacian decks. Federico is playing a Spiritomb archetype, which benefits from the introduction of Level Ball, as well as the reintroduction of Escape Rope into the format, trying to make that archetype a little bit more aggressive with some switch shenanigans going on with those Spikemuths. And Tord is no longer playing Control, still using Cinccino though, using Make Do alongside the Rapid Strike Urshifu archetype. Tord's a simple man, he just likes to draw cards.
I love Cinccino. It's one of my favourite cards in the format, so I'm completely on Tord's side here. Moving over to the Latin American region then, we can see that we're a little bit more Old Faithful here. Now, Lucas Mateus does sit there with a hybrid Victini VMAX Mewtwo and Mew deck, but we got Giovanni there with that Mewtwo and Mew Fire deck. We've got Joaquin playing that Pikachu and Zekrom with Mewtwo and Mew deck, and Matthias is again playing Eternatus, and like I said a moment ago, Weakness Guard Energy, there is so much Urshifu running around, you've got to have an answer to that weakness. And I find it really interesting that there are no Mewtwo and Mew decks that we're listing here, but actually Mewtwo and Mew has got its fingerprints all over this tournament.
Yeah, it certainly will be featuring in a ton of different archetypes. As we shift over to Oceania, then the last region, we'll see the final 4 players here. David Daratan is playing Pikachu and Zekrom, as is Jeremy Lim. Again, that sprinkling of Mewtwo going to be certainly important with the amount of rapid strikers that we have seen here. Mitch Nucky among them, also using that Jirachi engine to fall back on. And Jack Underwood is sticking with a welder box approach, which got him here in the first place.
I think sometimes sticking to what you know is probably a pretty nice idea. So let's turn that into graph form then. Let's see how it shapes out in terms of the most popular decks. And you will see there that it is actually Rapid Strike Urshifu V Max, that brand new archetype. 4 of the 16 players have gone straight for that. And then we've got Pikachu and Zekrom coming in second place because it's just the deck that's always good.
Yeah, what a statement that is, that these players, you know, really high-level players are able to take that risk and say that with the 2 weeks or so that they've had of testing with Rapid Strike, it's good enough. It's just a fantastic archetype, flexible, good options, decent draw engine behind it, and it's going to give them, well, they think at least, the best chance to win. And it's also cool to see that Eternatus and Pikachu and Zekrom haven't been completely scared off. They're adapting as well and trying to, you know, stick to archetypes that we know are really, really solid in the game, have high tempo, high damage output, some really big swings in there as well with some combat combinations, especially the Pikachu and Zekrom archetype. So really awesome to see such a good variety here in our global finals.
And then just that one Spiritomb, I am super interested to see how that one goes through the weekend. Now, we are going to be having a chat here for a couple of days, all about these Pokemon games, but we would like to hear from you lovely ladies and gentlemen as well. And you can do so in a number of ways over on twitter.com/playpokemon, using that hashtag playpokemon. And if you head on over to Facebook, again, we got facebook.com/Pokemon with that hashtag of playpokemon.
Yeah, and if you missed any of the region finals, seeing how people got here, you can go and head over to youtube.com/playpokemon or use that hashtag playpokemon to get involved. And also we have an Instagram handle that you can check out as well, instagram.com/Pokemon. Again, using that hashtag playpokemon for all your Pokemon goodness.
Absolutely. Now, we did say that all of the players who made region finals are getting that deck box and sleeves. Well, the good news is you lovely folks at home don't need to go home empty-handed either. If you go on to PTCGO and enter the code PCFreeGiovanni, that is Players Cup Free Giovanni, you can get yourself a full art boss's orders as long as you do it by the 8th of May, and you're one of the first 25,000 to do so.
Yeah, you're going to hear the words boss's orders quite often throughout the stream. It may be the final words we say before, oh, that's game, because it's an integral part of the format right now. Bringing up Pokemon from the bench is an awesome way to close out games and really pick off the important threats that your opponent has on the field. So your decks will be far better with this card. Definitely worth picking up the code.
And, you know, the full of artwork there it's pretty gosh darn beautiful. So do make sure you go and enter that code when you get the chance. So I mean, there's a lot going on here. I love a new format, Joe. I love when we've got new stuff going on. And Battle Styles, like we keep saying, is one of those sets that is really going to shake up the metagame. But I love the way that the top deck in terms of numbers is a fighting-focused deck, and then the second and third place decks are fighting weak decks, although it's not quite that straightforward.
Yeah, obviously the Pikachu and Zekrom adds its own psychic element in there. So there is, like we said, that sort of tug of war between these sorts of archetypes. It can be a little bit of dodge and weave at times, see where you land in the bracket and see if that helps you out. But there's nuance on both sides. The Rapid Strikers, they can play techs for the Mewtwo. The Mewtwo players can respond with their own techs and, you know, even Boss's orders up, things like Jirachi GXs and Mimikyus, deal with them and then hope that you get big damage potential later down the line. So both players, you know, even though there is just the big ×2 weakness in the bottom corner of some of these cards, there's a lot more nuance than it seems. And even, you know, outside of these sorts of weakness-based matchups, you know, there's welder approaches that can also weave in that Mewtwo for big burst potential. So lots of people have to play very carefully with that Rapid Strike because there's no guarantees it's going to be sticking around on the board, even though it has 330 hit points.
There's going to be so many opportunities to duck and dive and weave and use tricks. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, one of those tricks we are going to see players using, especially in those Pikachu and Zekrom decks, is that rather annoying Crushing Hammer card, which has been seen a lot of lately. So we've got a little video we want to show you here, which will tell you a bit more about that card, which some players love, and I think it's fair to say some players don't. Hey trainers, I'm Ross Gilbert, and it's time to take a look at one of the most divisive cards in the Pokémon TCG today. It's Crushing Hammer. If you've been playing the Pokémon trading card game in the past few years, this card has probably won and lost you a lot of games. Like so many of the most powerful trainer cards in the history of the game, the effect depends on a coin flip. Flip tails and nothing happens, but flip a heads and you get to remove any energy card from any of your opponent's Pokémon. One of the most powerful effects in the game, as removing energy will stop your opponent being able to use their Pokemon's attacks. Although there are some very powerful single energy attackers in the game today, Excadrill being a particular favourite of mine, most Pokemon need more. Eternatus V Max can attack for as much as 270 damage, but needs 2 energy to do so. Being able to remove their energy can often cost them a turn of attacking, enough for you to swing the game in your favour. Decks like Pikachu and Zekrom can accelerate energy with their full Blitz attack, but they need free energy attached to begin doing this. Removing energy with Crushing Hammer can delay their full Blitz attack for a turn or two, giving you a crucial advantage in the game. One of the decks that is in the sights of every player right now is Zacian V with Arceus and Dialga and Palkia GX, commonly known as ADP. This deck relies on the Altered Creation GX attack, which allows all of that player's Pokemon to do extra damage and take an extra prize with every KO for the remainder of the game. This attack, however, requires both a water and a metal energy. Although it is possible to attach both of these in one turn, using cards like Metal Saucer and Energy Switch to get the metal energy, and then attaching the water energy as your attachment for the turn, it's rarely easy. Being able to delay Altered Creation by removing energy with Crushing Hammer can be a crucial strategy for many decks to get a win against this powerhouse deck. Not every deck can find the space for Crushing Hammer, and the coin flip makes it an inherently risky card, but this is a card that can give you an advantage against almost any deck, if you can flip heads. That's all for now, but make sure to keep watching the Pokemon Players Cup 3 to see how many players choose to take the risk and how lucky they get on their coin flips. And the wonderful news is that is pretty much everything you need to know before we get into the games here. We've seen the players, we've seen the decks, we've talked about the fact that Battle Styles is that really impactful set which is properly shaking up the game, so I think this is probably a good time to head on over to the bracket and remind ourselves we are in a brand new tournament here, so everyone starts off in a winner's bracket.
Yeah, and once again, double elimination you have to bear in mind, so there is also a loser's side here as well. All 16 players there, and we're going to be starting off winners round 1, looking at the very top here. It's going to be from North America, Azul Garcia Griego, up against the Latin American Lucas Matias.
Yeah, and this one is going to be a really fun game because we're really showing off straight at the beginning here the two sides of this format. We are going to be seeing a Rapid Strike Urshifu deck, the kind of which we see an awful lot here, against one of those welder-type stuff decks. Azul has gone for that Rapid Strike Urshifu deck, and we can see there we've got Jirachi for consistency. And speaking of consistency, Azul, over the past few years, one of the most consistent players in the game. Top 16 at Oceania Internationals, top 32 at Worlds, finalist at Latin American Internationals, just absolutely on a tear for the last few years.
Yeah, I think he's won 4 regional championships, so one of the most consistent players out there. He's a streamer, a huge community figure as well, so I'm sure if you check the chat right now on Twitch, there's going to be a ton of rat spam emotes. That's because there's people rooting for Azul. He's a pretty popular guy. For Lucas, as you say, he's playing the welder to all the good cards deck. He's weaved in the Victini VMAX in there. He's got Mewtwo and Mew and has cherry-picked a few of the best fire-type attackers that you can copy with that perfection ability. And yeah, also a ton of good results on his side. A Sao Paulo Regionals top 32, a Regionals top 16 from Fortaleza, an SPE top 8, as well as a Salvador Regional top 8 in some recent years. So 2 very prominent players here.
Absolutely. 2 good players, 2 decks infused with new cards. So let's head on over to the game then and see how this is going to shake out. And I, for one, I'm excited in a way which I haven't been for a little while in a tournament, because Rapid Strike Urshifu and Victini, they both have the potential to be genuine top-tier, just tournament-winning archetypes. And we're starting off straight away seeing both of them being showcased by proper job top-level players. I mean, if you want to start a new tournament, this is a good way to start it.
And it looks like we're going to be following Azul's side here. Azul with a big whiff on Stellar Wish straight out the gate. He does have a Mew that he can put down and try one more time to lucky dip towards a quick ball here is really the thing that he's most desperately looking for. So he can scoop up net the active, put down that Mew into the active now, switch back into the Jirachi and reload for one more wish here. He is actually debating using the rope instead, just because he has a really easy 2-prize knockout on the Dene, so he'd actually prefer that to be in the active. Does pick up that quick ball, so his turn just got a lot better.
Yeah, that is absolutely what he was looking for. Goes and gets that rapid strike. I mean, when it comes to this Urshifu, what you're really looking for is turn 1, attach an energy to your V. Turn 2, you evolve, attach another energy. And as long as one of those 2 energies was a rapid strike energy, which remember counts double on a rapid strike Pokemon as long as it's fighting and or water, and then you're hitting 120 to 2 Pokemon. But like you said, that Dedenne in the active, well, that's weak. So that Dedenne will go down, and Azul will be hitting 120 to the bench. So potentially on for, and we see that we've got the Rapid Strike energy, and the Fighting energy, and the VMAX in hand. So all Azul needs is a switching card next turn, and we could see Urshifu doing Urshifu things very quickly here.
I really like the debate Azul's having between his energy attachments. These are open deck lists, so Azul could just be looking through, seeing, should I be playing around Marnie? Should I be playing around the Fan of Waves item card from the new set? It says, you know what, my opponent's not playing any of those. Let's just put down the best energy that I can. The Rapid Strike energy provides both a water and fighting, and 2 of them all in one attachment. It's one of the reasons that makes Rapid Strike Urshifu just so dangerous. It makes that G-Max Rapid Flow online for next turn. So Lucas is going to have to play with that in mind. He is playing a copy of Mew himself, so he may be looking to weave that in, as well as trying to find the traditional good Pokemon that you look for on those opening stages. Something to weld onto could be the Victini. It's very solid in this matchup, just in the early stages, because of course Urshifu is just a V Pokemon, so you can get some good vanilla damage output, and possibly weaving in that Mewtwo when it's helpful.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things I find when you're playing against Rapid Strike Urshifu. That Mew becomes so good because of the potential to, you know, KO 2 bench Pokemon with Urshifu. So Lucas here is thinking, well, I kind of need to get the Mew, but it's turn 1. I've only got so many resources. There's only so many things that I can do. I don't really want to get the Mew, but if I don't get the Mew, I could be in really big trouble. And it just gives you a really awkward choice. And it's just the threat of that attack going, well, feel free not to get the Mew, but I can really punish if you don't.
Yeah, and even putting a Mew down can be punishing in its own right. It can give Azul an easier path. It could be a 2-prize knockout on the Dene, an easy Gust 1-prize knockout on a Mew, and then just deal with 1 tag team or 1 VMAX. So even though it's
120
helpful to put the Mew into play and denies
杀了
easy sort of spread knockouts over multiple targets, it actually can be detrimental in terms of the prize race. Lucas has found themselves a welder here. Azul does play the dojo build, so this aggressive one prize KO that Lucas is looking for here could be quickly punished by Azul. This is a risk.
这样有没有比较小声？
It is. I mean, Urshifu's other attack does 150 for a single energy if
应该比较
you're
小
on the
声了
bench and became active this turn. And like you say, that martial arts
Wow,
dojo,
nice.
if you're behind on prizes, does an extra 40. And I think that might
Oh.
be why you didn't take the KO.
前
Because all we needed
对面
there
一个
was
觉得
dojo,
他会有可能没
energy,
换位不打
and
哦。
that would have been huge.
Yeah, it seems unintuitive for Lucas to do this, but based on his board state and
手
likely
甜
his
玛
hand,
丽
he just can't risk Azul respond.
刚刚对面这边
It's not worth you going up one price and then lose two all in one go. This way, Lucas, is always staying out of range of a
先压牌
KO
嘛。
from anything Azul can throw at him. And, Azul's still got a great turn. Let's not get it wrong. He's already got that third energy established, essentially, so he can use that G-Max Rapid Flow if he feels it's necessary here. Also has drawn into some nice Pokemon search cards, so could be looking to re-establish his next Urshifu, as well as potentially dig deeper into the deck with some helpful basics here. He's actually going to establish the Jirachi early. That's always a good thing, so you can make
怕
sure
对
that
面
your
超
G-Max
梦
isn't
先
going
叫
to get
出来
quickly swept off the field by a Mewtwo.
Yeah,
这
removes
里
psychic weakness from all Pokemon in
会
play,
不
both
会
yours
抓
and
绿牌
your
的怪
opponents.？
原则
Do
上
still
是
need a
会。
switch before we get some stuff going here, so it looks like Azul is going to be going
这
after
个板
that
木
Crobat to try and draw a couple of extra cards.
要
Of
要
course, this is
丢
one of
哦
those situations, Joe, where that escape rope you've been talking
应该有
about
换
would
位
be
了吧
very helpful indeed,
哇
because it
塞
forces your opponent to switch to their only bench. Unfortunately, no escape rope here, but we do
学
still
看看
have Jirachi.
先击球应该可以先丢那个其他蒂娜吧，再压一张牌。是有换位了啦。
He could still choose to quick ball now, get rid of the Giratina, as we know it's not a useful card. So maybe a small misstep in terms of
这里场
sequencing.
地
At the
只
same
多打
time,
死
though,
敌应该
you
可以
have
不
to
用
say
下
that,。you want to play with the knowledge that you have the switch out. So it's all saying I already have pretty good odds of hitting.
这里我就觉得很奇怪，刚刚其他蒂娜不管看起来整场都是用不到的东西，是一定得丢的。
Now commit to the backup Urshifu. So in all accounts, a very very good turn. Probably going to hold the Jirachi in hand because he has a Dedenne GX.
120 120吗？
And cashing in on the rapid flow is no bad thing here.
You do just see 120 to 2 Pokemon. You do lose all the energy, but we have got that single energy attack, which can be following up next turn. So Lucas very much on the back foot here. Lots of damage on his board. Hasn't given up any
这边高
prizes,
几率应该
but
是
there's
赏
a
他
lot
一
of
拳
Pokemon
220
there
了。
which are ready to be KO'd at some point in the future. Here comes that Victini V Max. He's making his debut, Joe.
Yeah, it's a fantastic card. Just 2 energy to use that max victory to hit 100 plus 120 more if you're attacking into a V Pokemon. This obviously does include V Max as well.
3-3
So an easy way that you can 2-hit KO opposing
哇，
V-Maxes
这有
and
梦幻
1-hit
头很痛
KO
哦。
most regular
哇，
Vs.
对面这
So
个
Lucas just going to start to get to work on the V Max in Azul.
这个老大有留算细节吗？
He's going to try
下场
and,
地老
you
大
know,
梦
shut
幻
down some
吗
of？those options.
老大
which is
梦
pretty
幻
good.
东东
Yeah,
鼠
Azul mulling a few things over. He could go for an aggressive, potentially boss's orders play on the damage to Dene, and then he's looking for a switch out so that he can take a strafe KO. Or, he could even find a VMAX and attack into this active as well this turn on his benched Urshifu V. A few options for him here. Could also look to try and deal with the Mew if he
场
wants to
地
play
是
more
一定
aggressively
要
with his
下，
boss's
这边怎
orders.
么打？这边怎
Could
么
play
打
it？ safe and just the Dene
这边
first
怎么
and
打
then see what your hand looks like and make a choice from then on.
Yeah, it's always nice to be able to have some more cards and make the choice based off that. It is what we see, the Dene coming down. And now we do see a boss's orders, but I'm not seeing any
Oh
switching
my
options
god，
there.
这回合
And
动
that
不
is the
了，
one
尴
real
尬了。
downside with this Rapid Strike Urshifu V Max. If you use the attack that discards all your energy, and then you can't get out the active, you end up in this weird situation
哇，
where
这
you're
尴
like,
尬，动不
yeah,
了。
I'm hitting for, I think it's 30 damage. That's not good.
Yeah, it's one of the things where sometimes you normally lead in with Gale Frost Thirst, and then you go for the G-Max Rapid Flow after the fact, and then sometimes your opponent does the work for you and just knocks out your V-Max after those few turns. But because it's all led out with the Rapid Flow,
哇，这手牌
it's
要爆
kind
要
of
爆炸
stranded
了
this。V-Max. He obviously plays a huge amount of switch outs, but not able to find any of them. So it's all forced into a really awkward pass here by the looks of things, wanting to hold that boss's orders as well. You kind of want to catch up by knocking out that Mew at some point, so yeah, just holding the hand entirely. A bit of a whiff from him, no switches. He also plays one copy of Air Balloon that just wasn't able to access here.
想思考一下。
Not what you're looking for. And we're going to see Jirachi start to take over here because, excuse me, Victini, I should say. Because Victini,
哇，看这个真的要爆开了，
this a lot.
直接
Now
裂
we're
开
going to be taking out, remember, 220 damage, so it's going to
发
take
达
out
一回
the
了，真的要裂
Urshifu
开了。
and get rid of the energy.
这220、220打
And
谁
that
受得了？
Urshifu VMAX
那连鸡兄
is
打
very
打
much
打了
ready
伤
to
害
be
奖励，不
KO'd
知道
in
抢不
the
抢得
not
过
too distant future.
真的是有那个梦
This
幻实在太
Victini
麻
is
烦。
absolutely putting in some work here, and this is why we all looked at this card initially and went, yeah, that looks pretty good.
The good news is now the martial arts dojo is online. You can see Azul just having a quick scout to see how much he can be dealing to this Victini VMAX. Victini
Oh
VMAX
my
only
God.
has 310 hit points. So Azul can be making a bit of a comeback here. He's probably going to, off this quick ball draw, have to dig for cards. The good news is he could try and free up some board space with scoop up nets so that he can re-establish another Urshifu here, possibly. Actually, I think he has his other Urshifu's prize, so he's just down to this
哇，
last
还是好
Urshifu.
烂，天哪！
And it's heavily damaged, so although you can... Oh, wow, he's still missing the
哇
switch
操，
out
工
even.
具盖全都
He's
下
gonna
了，好
manage
烂
to
的手
lower his
牌。
opponent's hand size here, but this Urshifu is the last attacker he has, really.
And he has hit the switch, and the numbers here work perfectly because you hit 150 if you go active, behind on prizes, basic fighting, add 40, 190.
但他这样也没有下一个打点。
That is the perfect number to get a KO. But you're right, it's not just this KO, it's the, and now that, yeah. But what about next turn?
Yeah. It's pretty dicey.
那
next
他这个
turn.
对
You know,
面
if you
进
could
化
try and
手
leave it a
田
sort of
打
straight
死，
knockout on the damage
其
to
实下
day,
面
that
没有
would
下一
just
回合
keep
嘞。
you up in the prize race, because then you also move the Urshifu back to the bench to stay out of range of a Victini. Because Lucas doesn't need much. Already has
哎，
communication.
下面真的裂
Only
开
needs to
了，
find
这个
VMAX
这个工
energy
具
to
怪
take
下
an
好下
instant
满。
response. And if they're able to find any other cards here, I mean, they're pretty happy. They're just setting up for game at this point. They can already replace the stadium as well, which is handy. They're going to Giant Hearth for a couple additional energy cards, but this VMAX is just going to sit in play probably and be solid.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's looking really, really strong. And, you know, as much as these Urshifu decks can do a lot of damage and take easy bench prizes, etc.,
裂开
they're
裂
not
开
great to getting one-hit KOs on VMAXs and not hitting for weakness. We see Lucas there taking a KO, going down to one prize remaining. We are in that boss's orders for game scenario. And at this stage, Azul's got a lot to come back from, and his field is 5 support Pokemon.
Azul is going to craftily use that Giant Hearth. He wants to reset the reset
哦
stamp，that
叫
he
梦
marked to the
幻
bottom of his deck. Now he has a research
回收网
opportunity
还可以
to
把它
give
拉
himself a
回来。
50-50 to try and
哦，
hit
叫洞洞
that
鼠
reset
顶一
stamp
下
to。try and get Lucas off
Salt
of boss's
here.
orders here. He can
It's
re-establish an
Gina.
Urshifu, and he's hoping that just over a couple turns he can essentially turn this into a helpful VMAX. He's also going to use this switch here. He may as well get the extra chip damage in with Strafe. And let's see, he does find the reset stamp. That's going to be extremely helpful. Also finds the great catcher, actually.
哦，打
So
30
he
换
could
位
take，a 2-prize KO if he wants to and get a little bit further ahead in the race. It means he would need one more gust effect to win the game.
I think
Wow,
you've
这
got
个
to do
印
it,
下去
haven't
好
you?
刺
Take
激哦
out。the Dedenne now while you've got the chance, and then it's boss's orders next turn. If you're still around, then that means you can just KO the Mew and take the game. I mean, that's got to be what you're planning at this stage, surely. I mean, I don't see any other
东东
real
鼠
route
吗
to victory.
Yeah, this is a fantastic research for Azul. After that big whiff is exactly what he needed to get that straight knockout, that early damage that he put on with the G-Max Rapid Flow. Exactly what you're looking for. You have to go into a Dene GX here because the Crobat can get knocked out and you don't want that to happen. You're forcing Lucas to make a Reshiram and Charizard here or a Heatran to take a KO. And, you know, Lucas only has one card to work with right now, 2 from the top deck.
哇，直接结束
Oh,
！My
Elder
God，
Boss,
这
there
个
is
印
a
章
boss's orders, which is going to grab up that Crobat or Urshifu.
没有用。
It does not matter. It's
GG.
Crobat in the end, and Victini does take the KO. If you're going to have one card in hand, make it
GG 啊，
Elder
这个
Boss.
印章印下去
Wow, that，was
我
a
操
really！nice display from Lucas there. A little bit awkward.
干
for
连
Azul
鸡
at
熊都
times.
打
He
回
had
来耶
2 of his regular Urshifu V's prize. That's his only attacker. So he had to cherry pick it off the prizes, but then had to slowly rebuild. He had a really
牛的
nice
一
research
比
on
耶，
that
干
last
整
turn.
天
Got
打
him
架
2
哎
of！his one-off cards, the Great Catcher and the reset stamp, all in one go, which gave him that
这
leeway to
故
try and
事
get
告
into
诉
the
我
game.
们，
But
连鸡熊的
Lucas
斗
got out of
场
the
实
stamp.
在 实在有够会用善用的话，实在有够强。
But it is a testament to Victini and just how efficient it is.
打120，然后落后滑上去，比克提尼就升天了。这算也是还不错。可惜我觉得连击兄一开始进牌感觉太差了。他先攻被比克提尼拿掉一场，感觉很抖哎。
Yeah, and Lucas really didn't have to extend too much at all. He just had the efficiency of Victini on his side, which meant that he was causing the problem for Azul. Azul was constantly fishing and digging for pieces, missing along the way at times. But, the Victini just sits there and does its job and is really, really solid, especially into this matchup where it can't be knocked out so easily.
Absolutely. Well, let's head on over into game 2 then, see if Victini is going to have a straightforward route to a 2-0 victory, or whether this Urshifu really is going to... well, have a little bit of comeback potential. I mean, bear in mind, that was not a good game for Azul. He missed the attack one turn, just literally sat in the active, didn't do anything, had a couple of Urshifu V prize, still came so close to winning. So sometimes I find if a game goes really badly and you lose, but you had a decent chance, that kind of G's you up a little bit for game 2, because you're thinking, you know what? If I almost won that game, I feel pretty good about the next one.
不用下。
And Azul has good old attach pass by the looks of things for his opening. Lucas starting out with that Heatran GX is probably going to be looking for Mewtwo. Mewtwo can win the game this turn thanks to that psychic weakness. You can weld to a Mewtwo and just close the game very quickly. You can just copy Heatran's attack, so we'll see how much burst potential Lucas has available to him.
也没机会 OTK， 但是如果先打到他一拳的话，也是挺难受的。
Absolutely. Now we do see the Victini coming down here. Now we do see a quick ball getting rid of the Charizard GX.
哦，有机会秒掉哎，有机会秒掉，超猛，有机会秒掉。
kind of designed to be a nice, easy learn-to-play card. Got put in some products which will learn to play products, and yet it actually ended up making the top table the biggest tournament in the world. But we see Lucas getting a Mew here, and it looks like not going for that really quick victory. Looking for the setup instead.
It's strange. It's almost like a defensive
这也是蛮不贪的
rather than the I win immediately path. He's set himself up. He still has a couple hurdles to go. Like, of course, he could still find a Welder play here alongside a Mewtwo, but he's seemed to play towards almost missing Welder turn 1 rather than just trying to hit it and win.
It's still possible. I mean, from here, we need a Fire Energy Mewtwo switch, or Mewtwo and Mew. That would be the game. We can get 2 energy using that giant half. That one's nice and easy. So it really is as simple as that. There go the first 2 energy. There is a Welder, but there's no Mewtwo and Mew on the board. So... oh, it's actually onto the Heatran, draws an extra free card, so we do see the attack, but it is an attack with
这感觉跟那个杀山神的打法是一样的。先打他130，等下再龙接攻上去直接开局差。
Yeah, you're setting up that Victini to be the follow-up KO, or even that Hot Burn GX to be a response. So already a lot of pressure from Lucas. Didn't instantly win the game, but the turn is still absolutely fantastic. And Azul still on the back foot here, has a lot of supporters that he can use. He can replace that stadium, make it hard for Lucas to have his next Welder, disrupting those fire energies from coming into play at least.
330减130，200。
up the escape rope first, trying to make life a little bit more awkward for Lucas.
他在一个能量手填就可以了，所以他如果要移动神，要用把人撤退的话，就一定要龙接攻。
Victini out could be helpful. Azul could just be foregoing a VMAX here though. He could be looking for an energy attachment, and he could just be hitting with 150 damage with 100 Furious Blows this turn, and then you try and develop another Urshifu in the back, because really you want to make Lucas go through as many awkward prizes as possible and make 2 VMAXs from this point onwards. So we are going to see him re-establish a new Urshifu here. He can bench that, and is going to opt for the Marnie here. Gives him a lot less cards. It's only a -1 for Lucas, but we do see an energy card, and he can go Stellar Wishing now if he wants to.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout, to be honest with you. It seems like he's got what he wants, got the switch.
这里还没进化，应该会接在一起上去甩一下。
Absolutely in play, and I mean, if you can get damage here and not give up anything, you're giving up the energy, and that's a little bit.
直接打150，干，这些人打了我永远都想不到。
And then you make your opponent take out 2 free prizes. They've essentially had to take 8 prizes rather than 6. So if this can work, this could
他
basically just
是
be
觉
a
得
free
下一回合
attack.
就死
And I
了
love
吗
that the V is on the bench.
可是这样子他没叫哦有还是有机会直接在落后，然后直接把喜多兰恩
You don't need
滑上去
free
一拳
energy
打
on
死
an Urshifu VMAX for it to be
他想要
great.
落后
One energy will do in the right
Okay.
circumstances.
Yeah, and it's interesting for Lucas now. He could do the same thing. He could just stay as a regular Victini V and just hit straight back with this damaged Urshifu. As long as this dojo stays in play, though, it does give us all some nice options to maybe one-hit KO the Heatran and stuff like that. So both players using their helpful, you know, normally we see these Vs as just stepping stones into the VMAXs, but both of them are finding them useful here with their regular attacks. Lucas welding for 1 right now, so no guarantees that he can still be attacking here. Does have a Cherish Ball to go fishing if he needs to.
Yeah, get some extra cards. Interesting to note for players wondering, there was a new Victini that was printed, Victini V, in Battle Styles, but we also got a Victini V in Sword and Shield. And to be blunt, the one from Sword and Shield is quite a lot better. So you are going to see the players in this
这里
tournament
他这里
using
蛮
that
明显
older
是
Victini
是
V
要落后，
because it's
然后
just
直
got
接把
better
西多兰
attacks. You
恩
know, it's
打
got that
掉。
attack that punishes you for the amount of energy you've put on.
不过如果这
and
边
an attack that accelerates
比克
energy
提
as
尼
well.
直接
That's
进
not
化
seen a huge amount of play, but
打
you add a nice
220
VMAX
的
in and
话
it becomes a really nice pair of cards.
等一下也是
Yeah,
滑
it
上
found
去
its way
比
in
克提尼
sometimes
就
like a
死了。
one-off copy in like some Mewtwo variants just to have that extra fire typing on a 2-prizer. So it's been on the fringes, but now it's just an excellent card that you could then evolve as well. Lucas ends up having to find a switch here to go into his Heatran. You really want to replace the stadium if you go down this Heatran route, because if the dojo sticks, it gives us all another easy 2-prize KO with a Gale Thrust next turn.
Absolutely.
Oh,
and
he
it
does find it. Nice.
Yeah, that
哇
was
场地
important.
被压掉了
Stadium bumped quite nicely. Of course, the problem here for Lucas is he's potentially giving up a 2-prize Heatran at some point, and then the
场
Victini
地
is
被压掉，真是
damaged, and
头
it's
酸
that
痛。
VMAX that gives up 3 prizes, and then you take out the Mew, and there's your 6-prize map. So it is slightly awkward. You got to think you probably wanted the KO with Victini there, but as it stands, going to be going up by a couple of prizes, and neither player really establishing a great board here. But as I'm saying that, we see another Victini hitting the board with an energy, and you don't need Welder if you can just manually attach 2 turns in a row.
And Azul is looking for a big wish here. Stellar wishing towards research probably is required here to really re-establish his hand. The VMAX is a really nice start though.
绿牌啊没有，哇靠！
That is rough. He can
Not good.
用基拉奇 loop 还可以再许一次
go
愿
for。another wish with the old
这边是还这样子是真的，刚刚这样他没有先上去许愿是比较稳。看如果是我上去许愿就已经爆开了，抓这个进化，刚才上去许愿也没什么意义。
Yeah, you have to. It's a little bit sad and really needs to hit something off this. Oh, hits the research. That is nice.
Yeah, really did need to hit that. There's also a dojo in there as well, which you'd love to draw
我是
back
拼
in.
东西喽。
So we'll see what this research provides. He still has Crobat pushes and the Dene pushes potentially.
哦有
Does find
球
some quick ball,
还可以再
has
拼。
great catcher as well. If you think you're not going to hit the dojo, you may just fire up a great catcher to cash in on one of these the Dene
要
GX.
狙他枪吗？应该。
And then
可
just
是
play
这
your
边要
own to get
甩
it
牌
down.。
And that is the question very much. If you can hit Dojo, you take out the
丢
Heatran.
一
Good
丢二。
attackers, got that GX attack sitting in the back, and it's got a bunch of energy on. So that would be your preferred option. But great catcher for the Dene is just such a good play.
应该是不会发这个狙他枪，他要把西多兰恩直接收掉。
It's so nice when you can. Still does need a switting card though.
干发了又好像可以发了打死东东鼠就不会落后。等一下就杀不死西多兰，那是肯定不会发。
even for Zigzagoon to come in and finish off that damaged Victini V. That's what Azul's eyeing up at the same time. The thing that's awkward about this great catcher is you put the Heatran back to the bench, and then it could come back in and steal more energies that are around the board. So it looks like Azul's going to forego the great catcher play. He's going to go hunting for some Ziggy scoop up net plays.
他要斗场，他要斗场，他要斗场。
switch out as well, of course. And this is going to be
哇，没有。
does not find the stadium, which
No.
was the thing that he was most looking for. But no switch out either. It's another turn where he can't attack.
This is not looking good at all. Took the risk, didn't pay off, but it doesn't matter what the plan was. Had Azul gone and used that great catch?
刚下一回合怎么动？下一回合怎么动？还有加一起，还有一直加一起。对面金闪奖哎，头痛了。
Quite nice for Lucas because can really start planning towards potentially just taking out that Jirachi, and then maybe in a couple turn or two, just big Heatran GX attack KO on the VMAX, and that will be the game.
Yeah, and it's only down to Azul to find his last dojo to respond on that Heatran in any way, shape, or form, and his hand has no push potential. He's living on a Stellar Wish again next turn, so Lucas is in a good position. Let's see how he
如
can
果
put the
这
squeeze
边
on.
有
I think
对面
ideally
有
you
老
want to
大，
attack
应该是
with the
会先老
VMAX in the
大，
active this turn, or even just your undamaged regular V and keep the
也
Heatran in the back.
不一定
Try and
四
spread your
奖
energies
让他
out
进
as
三
much as
奖。
possible, and just take that one prize. And as you say, eye up that VMAX to be your finisher.
Well, you're going to need 7 energy in order to get a KO with the VMAX. There's already 3 on there. So if you can get a VMAX attacking in the active with 2 energy, then next turn it's Welder, switch into the active to get those other 2 energy. There's your 7. That's a 1-hit KO on the VMAX. This isn't some like ridiculous crazy combo. We do see the escape rope coming in. This is going to be really interesting.
This could help Azul actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. The thing about escape rope is if Azul
东
feeds
鼠
the
哦，
Dene now, it may force Lucas to actually GX through it, which is doing him a huge favor. Lucas may have boss's orders already in hand established, though. That may be the reason he's doing this. He's just trying to preserve the energies for the Heatran. That's one thing that I can think of. Going into Mew, that is interesting.
Oh, yeah,
coming in. All right, so he can pivot out. It's whether or not he has boss's orders to go along with this Heatran play here, because you do not want to GX through this Dene. It's super awkward for you.
It's the only way you're getting a KO, because Dene is a GX, not a V, and Victini only does the extra damage to Vs, not GXs. We do have that new
下面推东东鼠上来，
with a rule box
是注定东东鼠会死吗？
还
还是要花对面多一点资源？但是东东鼠没死，下不来，下面不能动也很智障。
And we've been talking the whole time. Heatran's GX attack should be reserved for those final 3 prizes on the VMAX. So there goes the Victini, choosing to evolve the damaged one rather than the undamaged.
Yeah, that's an interesting shout.
剩
He may be
140
trying
滴。
to. Yeah, I'm not sure why you go for the damaged one instead of the healthy one that's on the bench there. He hasn't turn attached this turn.
No.
He could be looking to go for some Spreading Flames plays. I'm not too sure about this one. He may be Spreading Flames with the regular V in the bench, perhaps? Azul's having a look.
Maybe. It's an awkward turn. I'd love to see Lucas's hand right now. We do see a Poker Gear, and that is going to get a Welder. With Giant Half on the field, that means you can definitely fire it off for the 2 energy and the draw 3, which is nice. But there isn't much going on. But having said that, all we really need is a switch. Oh no, we need boss's orders, but he's just played the Welder, so he's going to play Welder.
He's got Welder. Yeah, there we go.
So I'm just probably not going to see a boss's orders coming down. Oh, that is.
So if you do Heatran, you can try and set up Victini VMAX boss for
西
game.
多人要开局差了，
Azul's
应该是会拿这2奖。
VMAX. So you can still path it for 2 turns. You still need boss's orders, and Azul can evolve out of 2-turn win, if that makes sense. So a bit of an awkward miss for Lucas there, not having boss's orders on the turn.
哦，下面的连击熊如果都进化上来， 说不定也是有得打哦。
Could have been an easy close for you later down the line.
Absolutely. Now the good news
先许愿再
there
说
is。the switch. A little bit late now.
哇哇哇！哇塞，是顺到也是顺到不行。看他场地印章，黑带插右边那只，先switch 另外一张吉拉奇。
No, and I've realized now that Lucas
看一下换位，如果够的话，应该会 switch 另外一张吉拉奇。
damaged Victini rather than the healthy one. He's playing around. He's playing around Ziggy net damage. Azul does have that karate belt, so he can try and power up
防弱点的
another
吉拉奇要
fairly easily.
下
He
嘛
could go for like multiple. Well, he's going for multiple stellar wishes to.
不下感觉等一下超梦出来会直接秒掉
He's gonna go ahead and play the research first. See that extra 7 cards. Doesn't find any energy attachment whatsoever. Doesn't find that dojo yet either. He has a few stellar wishes to try and get in there. There's
哇，
the
场
dojo.
地来了
Okay, so we've got a
我
response
靠
KO here for 2 prizes.
这个也太刺激了
That's a
吧！
good
啊，可是怎么没有能量
Got？some communications going on. Yeah, so he can VMAX out of being.
这个要先
bossed
赶
for
快
game.
进化上来。
This is big and very interesting to note. But following on from what you said a second ago, there are actually
这边要不要再
Azul's hand. So had we not seen the evolution,
应该不会插字符吧？
would have been KO'd. So That was actually pretty big.
Yeah, so Azul isn't going to go digging.
少个手田有点亏。
Obviously want to put Crobats into play because that then opens up the door for Lucas. He still has the Dene, but he's saving it for another turn by the looks of things. He's going to be content with a 2-prize KO here. And he's hoping that the 2 VMAX
这回
are
合
just
比
tanky
克
enough to
体
get
应
him
该
through
蛮
here.
高几率上来打个
And it
200
might
了。
be. I mean, as it stands at the moment, Lucas can either muck about KOing both the Zigzagoon and the Jirachi, which is not a great place to be, or can try and go through one of those VMAXs, but with some switching and trying to avoid those KOs. Azul is not out of this game. It is absolutely, and
哇，
this
这
is
个
something that
印章
Azul
永远都没有
loves
用
seeing it at the
永远
bench.
都动得
Because
起来
that。 Crobat, along with those Dedenne, I suppose you already had the Dedenne, but still, lots of easy 2-prize Pokemon is what I'm getting at here. So Azul shouldn't struggle to take KOs the next couple of turns. It's just whether he'll have the time to do that.
And it's crazy that Lucas has discarded both of his Mewtwo's in a matchup where Urshifu is here and there's no Jirachi GX in play. Lucas is saying, here's my alternate path. I've had to put down too many other Pokemon to even weave in this Mewtwo. Trying to get the job done with his Victinis over a couple of turns. The good news is for Lucas, the stamp has been played now for Azul. He only plays 1. So if you can just launch any sort of attack here, your hand size is going to stick more than likely outside of Marnie's. So hopefully you can still 2-hit KO this VMAX in the active.
That would be nice. And to be fair,
对面在
being
参考
Marnie isn't great in the late game, but Marnie to 4 rather than reset stamp to 1.
另外一张比克体没有
absolutely
进化
fine.
上
And these are the important things, and it's
应该
why
是
it's
找不
so
到。
oh, there's an escape rope. Oh, I wonder what Azul is going to pick. Because he can just go
手文
into
熊
pretty much the same Pokemon here. But it looks like he's actually going to
手
stick.
文熊。
I
手文
like
熊
this a lot because he can scoop up net his Jirachi and then it's basically a free turn that he's got.
Yeah,
This is so good for Azul. This rope once again is hurting Lucas's path, I think.
I agree entirely. Scoop up now. Remember, Azul has got it in hand. We can see it on his board there. And you're right. This will put Lucas down to 1 prize remaining. But Azul will go, right, well, now the only Pokemon in play are 3
手
prize
田先拿
Pokemon,
再
so
拿一
have
奖
fun
吗
with your 8 prize game. I like this.
Wow, this is crazy. The escape rope is skill testing on both
干那
sides.
等下
Players
下面机牙
have to be
旗
aware
拉
of
起
it when
来
you're coming up， against
看对
it,
面也
but
超不
also
舒服的呢。
knowing what your opponent could do to punish this. Okay, so Lucas is actually
Oh.
moving in the boss's orders now instead. Bringing back up. So he's just wasted resources, basically. He's roped, hoping Azul makes an error.
哇干，这个再换位滑上去，
And then has the boss's
另外一
orders,
只
so
比克体你又
spending
倒
a
了，
couple cards here
干
when he could have just retreated out of the Mew and hit anyway. But the same outcome in the end. They're just the boss's
这个
orders
斗
down
场
now,
也太
which
OP
makes
了
Azul,
吧。
again, is better for Azul because now he can play around boss's orders again this turn by just switching into the next Urshifu.
And this is huge because that martial arts dojo is absolutely putting in work. Taking, and Karate Belt, I should mention, is actually making it 1 energy, fighting energy less to attack. So you don't actually need any energy because Azul's behind on prizes.
在
He can
思
attack
考要
for essentially nothing
打
because
梦
of that
幻吗
Karate Belt, which is
该不
huge.
用吧。
And that martial arts dojo,
170
going from 150 to 190 means you KO Victini V Max. It means you KO Dedenne. Excuse me. Yeah, Dedenne and Crobat, which you're already hitting for weakness. Heatran. It basically means that 1 attack can KO almost anything except the V Max. I love this, and it
为
looks
什么
like
要
they are
先
going
拿
for
这
the
3
Gale
奖？
Blast on the
我想一
Victini.
下，
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. It forces Lucas to have VMAX and boss in hand. They spent a boss last turn trying to do that rope
200
shenanigan play, which
2
could really cost Lucas here at the end.
Yeah, rope shenanigans don't always work. So what have we
300
got here? Now we do see a Poké Gear coming
下
up,
面
and
应
we
该不会
do see a
死啊。
boss's orders. That is pretty huge.
Is it
Now,
enough
is
to
it-
get them there? They only hit 90 last turn, so the 90 plus 220
It's 310. That's not
is
enough.
310. We're not there. We're not there with the VMAX. Yeah, he really needs to be hitting with the VMAX last turn to be doing meaningful damage because Azul being able to pick it off just means everything's out of range now. Azul's in a really good spot here. Lucas just not able to close on these last few
比
turns.
克体你
Was unable to
170，
find the VMAX for one of these occasions. And,
剩
Azul's found a way
140
back into this game quite nicely.
Yeah, I'm not seeing what Lucas's play is here. I don't think he can win the game this
嗯，这
turn.
真的是
And the problem with not winning the, and we don't see the win this turn. We see 120 damage. So
已知
now
对面
remember,
手上有
Martial
老
Arts
大
Dojo，is offline at this stage because Azul is no longer behind on prizes. But if we dig for a boss's orders, a boss's
Yep.
orders would
拼老大吗？
absolutely end the game. we've already seen, I believe we've already seen the great catch, so it is just boss's orders. Oh, I like that. Jirachi don't hit it, but we do hit a quick ball.
吉拉奇许愿许起来 combo，
Scoop up net, switch.
吉拉奇许愿 combo。
Here as well from Azul. He could lower his hand size enough to actually still be able to Crobat pre-Dedenne as well. So he's making as much of a push as possible here to see if he can close with.
有老大就赢了。
You think he's got to hit the Lysander.
10 cards left in deck. He has a 50-50 shot right now, and the odds only get better as you go.
来了，不用了，哇塞，靠背。
We'll bring up either the Dedenne or the Dedenne or the Crobat or the Mew, literally anything. And there we do see the Gale Frost does take out the Dedenne, and we are going to be tied at 1 game apiece.
哦，
Yeah, really nice play from Azul.
感觉这边连击球的细节是蛮多的。
Get in some damage and stay out of range at different points. The escape rope, it's one of those cards you have to be really careful of using it because it ended up hurting Lucas's resources towards those later stages. And I feel
先
there
打
probably
死
was a
比
path
克
for him
提，
to
你
win
确
if he had used those resources.
让他确定他不会被打这
So,
220
something to certainly bear in mind
要
when
看
you go
对
into
面
these
右
next
手
games.
有
The
没有
rope。 is, it's almost a double-edged sword at times when you want to hit the active Pokemon in certain occasions. So that is a small nuance that you have to keep in mind.
It really is. I'm going back to turn 1 when there was that turn 1 win potential, and sometimes I like to think about where I am in the game. I'm a slightly over-aggressive when I play generally. I like playing these fast, hard-hitting decks.
哇
But
塞，
I
他
think
们
when
这
you're
个
up 1 game, that is a really good time.
连击熊真的是还是要够手诶，感觉自己想的跟他想的还是蛮多洞都有落差的。
Game 3 if it all does go a little bit pear-shaped, so there were certainly
没想到放个梦幻，
好
像是小事欸。
工
工具怪实在太容易抓出来打死。 他这个斗场落后可以打190，有想法，感觉是必放的。打比克提你好舒服哦，落后就是滑上去就是190。
And hilariously, we haven't seen any Mewtwo action at all from Lucas's side.
轮到比克提先攻，那就
But we assure you, there are 2 of them in there, and possibly could be coming
那
out in
就
this
不
game
好
3.
说
It is
咯
such a big burst of
这
damage
边就要
that
看下
Azul
面的铺场
hasn't
有没
always
有
been able to
了。
play around because his hands have been suboptimal quite
下面的
often.
手牌还不错。
And Lucas is going first here. So you can see that he's chosen to go first. Not very usual for Welder decks to choose first, but when you're playing that Victini VMAX,
我只是觉得上面的比克提也超梦也从来没用过，是蛮奇怪的。
Yeah, and that's absolutely crucial when you're playing Victini, because if you go first and you get your Victini Energy V Max, which in 2 turns is not a lot to ask, you get an attack before your opponent has had a chance to evolve their Pokemon V. So here, the way it looks at the moment, Lucas needs an Energy and a V Max, and that's potentially a KO on that Urshifu before it ever actually gets rolling. So I think you've got to go first, and also really important to note that V Max on the Rapid Strike is also what you want to go
哇，
for.
只有一只怪，只有一只怪，再来个球，再来个球。
So that is also a deck that
没
really
有
wants to go first to get those attacks rolling early. So I think it's a matchup where both players
干
want
这
to
个手
start.
牌尴尬了。
Does Azul have to throw this hand away to play around getting boss's orders on turn 2? Lucas only has a 4-card
上去
hand,
打30
but the push potential is there for
不
him
敢
to
丢啊，
attach
这手上没办法
VMAX,
丢哎。
switch boss. He's not going to go for the... So he was stellar wishing for that ball search card initially, missed it, doesn't want to Dede change it all
对面
away.
应该会拼
So he's
Switch
saying that
手天
hopefully
老
this
大。
5-card hand now from Lucas after the top deck
但
isn't
如果这个
enough
手
to
天
get a
老
boss
手
down.
天
If
进
Lucas
化
can
老
pull it
大的
off
话
with
就
the
爆
combination
炸
of
了。
Dede change and Crobat, this could be
虽
a
然说每次
huge
爆炸
turn
下面还
forward.
是打回来。
It really could. If he
可
doesn't
是
get it,
这
Azul's
个
got the Rapid
这个
Strike
太，
energy.
如果直接被
He's
打死，
got
真的
the
太亏了。
Urshifu V Max, the Professor's Research, the Dedenne. There are so many options. He's got a phenomenal hand, but it's all going to be for naught. And we see the Crobat coming down to search for 4. We've got to be seeing this push for
移动
boss's
神或
orders
死 Switch
here.
加老大。
If it comes down, we
移动
still
神
need
加
a
老大
Switch
或
and a
死
V Max
Switch
in
老大。
addition to the boss. It's not quite that
反
straightforward.
正有
But
2个启动
this
这个
would
都
be
可
a,
以。
just a phenomenal swing in the game very, very early.
Yeah, the alternative is Lucas could actually just go for a welding play to the active and hot burn GX for 1 prize. It would be relevant, seeing as though Lucas does play cards like Cramorant V in his deck. You can really stop Azul putting down the likes of Jirachi GX and Dedenne GX. So even this 1 prize is relevant for the race here. If Lucas can't piece together the boss's orders, he could go for
看
a
这个
hot
大
burn
屁股
instead.
在前面，真是
He could.
连
That would
气球也下不
absolutely
去，真
work.
是
We
很
do
尴
see the
尬。
energy being brought out using Giant Half. We see Poker Gear. What's it going to be? Because there's a couple that could be very impactful here.
有
If he has
东
a
西
switch, it's
吗？
always boss. If he cherry picks Welder or Research, none of
Nah,
these cards are what you
boss.
want to see at all.
No, that is not what you were looking for.
Man, okay, so he might be researching away a big hand here just to get a switch in to try and find a V max for the one prize KO.
对，没有
instead.
东东鼠吗？要拼吗？
Could be what he's sat on right now.
And that would work. That would be fine. That would, you know, Victini is there to take out Pokemon V, but it still does 100 for 2 energy, which
哇，好赌哦！
against
对面的
evolving
手牌不知道是
Pokemon
什
or
么
littler，
哇，
support
博士
Pokemon like
没
the
了。
Galarian, Zigzagoon, Jirachi, etc. It's still nice early game pressure. It still gets prizes.
他应该会用
It's just-
想要开第一招铁能。
really optimal. I mean, there was a chance for Lucas there to just absolutely put a stamp on the game super early and go, well, now you've got no Urshifu, and if I can stream a couple turns of boss's orders, things are going to get super dicey for you. As it is, we've seen a far more straightforward turn, and actually, as it stands at the moment, Lucas still needs a switch. In this game so far, on this match,
梦幻又
Azul
来
has been the
啦。
person who's been having to leave a Pokemon active and give up an attack. If Lucas doesn't have a switch here, roles are reversing, but there is the
所以去开
switch,
第一
so we
招。
will see a KO on the Galarian Zigzagoon.
Yep, and Lucas was able to establish Mew, which also helps out reducing Azul's sort of outputs by really nullifying that G-Max Rapid Flow.
两
Wow,
颗两
we're
颗
going to see no prize taken here. He's trying to load up that Heatran instead and say, go ahead and VMAX. You see what happens?
哇塞！现他妈的这个能量全来了是怎样？
It's weird. The Victini VMAX, new one from Battle Stars, actually has the same attack.
哇！
as
一
the
次掉这
Victini
么多颗
V
头很痛
from
哎。
Sword and Shield. It accelerates a little bit of fire energy from your discard. It's a
我
nice
刚才看
little
它配
attack.
率应该
and
是4斗
It's coming in quite nicely.
4
If you don't need to take the prize,
4
now
连技
you
能。
usually rather have that attack on the Pokemon V than on the VMAX. But you know what? If it's setting up your board quite nicely and putting you in a great position moving forward, I mean, why not? With the Mew down, there's no reason to really use Urshifu's second attack. So you're talking 150 damage
Oh my god！
maximum here. It's not going to get a KO.
这
It's
个
not
能
going to take
丢
out
吗？
any
哇
other
塞！
Pokemon on your bench. So it's not bad.
Yeah, thanks to the Ziggy ping, the 150 is really good for following up with the Gale Thrust. So I think it's going to be another turn where Azul just
剩3 颗
doesn't
能
go
量
for the VMAX
丢
this
不
turn,
了
just discards it
吧？
instead. The awkward thing is, as you saw, he has very few energy remaining in his deck.
这个是能
So
丢
this
的吗？
research is quite painful for him. He probably has to go for it though, digging for switch outs for the Zigzagoon to get an attack in at all this turn.
You really don't want to give up another turn of not attacking. It's awkward. But then again, do you want to give up the V max? Now you can do 150 with the V or the V max. Either will work, but like we've seen with the 8 prize game, forcing your opponent to knock out a Pokemon V and then rocking V maxes afterwards is a really good way to do it. But you're giving up a V max, you're giving up that Jirachi, you're giving up the Dene, you're giving up 2 energy cards. Like you said, this is gonna be painful. Oh, and
It's a lot of
Now-
deliberation. I really like the
Yeah.
Jirachi GX coming down. You have to protect yourself from Mewtwo. The only thing it does open the door for Cramorant later down the line. No switch out again from Azul, but he does have communication to Dede change this all away now.
but then you're losing another Rapid Strike energy if you do that.
You're not happy about it, that's for sure. He plays so many switch outs. Oh my
好烂的
goodness.
金
He
牌
has all the scoop up nets. He plays 1 rope, 4 switch. There's so many. He's just not hitting them at all.
No, and this is starting to get very, very painful here. And I mean, Lucas has got to kind of be loving watching this. When you see your opponent use that professor's research, you take a little bit of a look and go,
刚刚
"Ooh,
为什么刚
what
刚
are
不
they
进
getting rid
化
of then?" And it does look like we are now going to VMAX, which of course there was a VMAX that was thrown away the previous turn using Professor's research. But essentially it's all going, I'm not getting the switch out. I cannot afford to Dene. But now I've got to VMAX, because if I don't VMAX, I'm just going to get KO'd by my opponent's Victini if they've got a boss's orders, and it's my only Urshifu on the field.
哇操
Speaking
嘞
of which, oh, this is not going well for Azul here at all. Is
就这
there
样子
any
白
way we
白
can
被
get
干
to
一拳
7
220
energies here?
No. So I feel like the 1 prize is so good for Lucas there that I would probably hold, because the only way Azul takes any response attack, you can just instantly punish that with your Heatran. I'm kind of surprised you didn't see the one prize take there. Lucas is getting some peppering up damage onto that VMAX. Azul does now find
再拿个球，对面不会手上再有老大吧？3老大嘞，
So options have once again opened up for him.
可以拿球蹲一下了吧？拿球手
It's
贴。
such an awkward one, though. I mean, if we look at Azul's board, there is very little going on. There is an Urshifu, which is halfway to being KO'd, and nothing. So you've got to get another Urshifu this turn. That is an absolute must get. And you've got the Rapid Strike Energy there ready to go. But then you've kind of got to attack with a VMAX, knowing that you won't get a KO, but you then will give up a KO. And I mean, if you don't hit the Urshifu this turn, it's looking very, very bad moving forward.
Azul's going to do some nice hand thinning strats, gets rid of the Great Catcher for no effect on his side. Rather than getting an additional card here. You can see he values these energies too much to discard. Just gets a couple from the Crobat. They actually find that switch out, so he can piece together an attack here. No other backup Urshis whatsoever, though. So just maybe the Gale Thrust. Yeah, really awkward hand that Azul had to play with there.
Yeah, and I don't think we can blame Azul for that. That's one of those turns. These turns happen. Couldn't do much. I mean, could have gone quick ball for an Urshifu, but then you don't get the switch to get the attack off. So it's just a super awkward situation. But now we are going to see a KO on that VMAX. And Urshifu V, the Rapid Strike, just, what, 30 damage for one energy and switch to the bench? One energy on an Urshifu V is not a good attack.
But he does have the Rapid and the Karate Belt, so he can, if he can piece together like some sort of switch out, he could use 100 Furious Blows to take the response KO here. That's an option for him now. Picks up the scoop up net, so if he finds a Bull Search, he's pretty happy. Oh my goodness, he has had such terrible luck with his hands and his wishes as well. He can reload a wish now. He's doing it the hard way, man. The deck is not helping us at all.
Really is not. Now there is the quick ball, but...
Yeah, you have to play for tempo here. You have to take the 3 prizes as they sit, I think. There's no other option you have. If you go researching, you're just going to lose too many options.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Of course you're right. But all we need for a response KO is a Victini V Max. The energy's there, the Victini is there, and then Lucas is going to be down to 1 prize remaining, and is always going to be back in the same position as this turn. So I agree. I think Karate Bout, Rapid Strike Energy, it will get the KO. It absolutely will. But you're kind of... And actually, even then, you don't even need the Victini V Max. A switch would do it as well, and then Heatran could get the KO.
Yeah. So we know that this Urshi is just taking the 3 and then saying peace out. That's just happening. But Azul has literally no other plays here.
Oh no,
I've really got nothing.
And that's what's so awkward in games like this. I'm sitting here being like, oh, don't love that play. It's a little bit awkward. But then you're looking at the board, you're looking at his hands, you're like, this is...
干，按到啥小？
think, oh, the Psychic Trains up.
Needs for the Jirachi GX to tank. If Lucas makes a VMAX, you're in really bad shape. Because then the hot burn is still in the back to take the KO, and there's nowhere you can tank.
果然是没有人家强。
It is it's a terrible position to be in, and it's so much worse in game 3 because this is it. You know, we're in a new tournament, everyone's in a winner's bracket, but we got 16 players in the double elimination tournament. You don't want to take a turn 1 loss.
This is a chance. This is a chance. This is what you needed. You needed Lucas to not hit the VMAX.
算是细节就
Hot
对
burn
了
GX being
啦。
spent means Azul can go into that Jirachi, or at least end on Jirachi GX. He has the research, so he can start with his Stellar Wish. He's going to try and stamp, reset a new Urshifu, and then research the rest away.
It's the only option. And then you can, like you say, you can start whittling down a VMAX if it's in play. So, or taking out other Pokemon if it's not. So it's absolutely doable, but this is not the position from which you really want to be starting. But you're starting with an Urshifu, and you've got the stamp, and you've got... There is a Professor's Research in hand, right?
Yeah. So he's got the play. This is as good as it gets for him. He just needs to make sure that he can Stellar Wish into a switching card at this point. He can put down a Mew to protect around Cramorant being a lost condition. Or you can keep it open for the Dene GX if you want extra pushes. I feel like Mew is reasonable to not lose to Cram. There has been a lot of Fire Energies played, so you may just not want to play around that anyway. He's going to go ahead and pick up the Giratina again as the deadest card in his deck and keep the board space open, which I think is super fair as well.
Yeah, nice to have a little bit of a think. You were only going to discard the card anyway with Professor's Research, so use it, do a bit of scouting, have a little bit of a think. Now, we do have a switching card here, and we do have an energy, so we've got pretty much everything you would want.
Yeah, and he can poke with the Strafe this turn, Strafe into the Jirachi, get that little bit of chip damage on the Heatran to finish it off next turn, and then make a VMAX. That's pretty much the plan.
And to be fair, 30 damage is relevant here because it brings Heatran down under that 150 threshold, which you are hitting. So actually, this is one of those rare situations where that 30 damage is actually genuinely relevant. So attach the energy, poke, and then you kind of have to switch into the Jirachi GX because anything else is just absolute fodder for the Victini V. Max.
Yeah, exactly. So the Strafe coming in from Azul, you go into your Jirachi and hope that the stamp works, basically.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. Last time Lucas just ripped the Eldegoss for game. This time we're a couple more pieces needed, I think. There are still ropes available though, which is very scary for you.
Rope Energy VMAX would absolutely end the game. Having said that, the general rule is when a player has a very low hand size and spends this long doing nothing, very little is coming. Sometimes there are exceptions, but generally speaking, this is not a great sign for Lucas.
Azul's found the way to buy himself the turn.
Wow, 为什么永远对面 forever fucking
welder for win? Does he just not have enough energy? He must just not. Wow.
这游戏印章在这些人身上是没有用的。
I think it must be his last fire energy is his last prize. That's the only reason you don't Cramorant there. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fires used or accounted for, I should say. So that's the only reason. That's why Lucas was taking his time. He was having a count of his energies to see if Cramorant was actually valid. Eldegoss looking like it. Yeah, I think we're there. I think we're making a VMAX and Eldegossing. Oh no, we're just Eldegossing. We don't even need that. And we can Heatran. Yep.
Yeah, boss's orders gets the Zigzagoon into the active, and it's not the flashy attack on Heatran, it's just 130 damage, but you know what? In this situation, that is absolutely enough. Lucas slow rolls us all a little bit there with the DNA and pulls out a really, really impressive 2-1 victory. Commiserations to us all there. I mean, played as well as I think he could have in that game, but was just swimming upstream the entire game.
Yeah, there's almost a refund on those reset stats.
我上次被阿昌印章也是一样的，一玩什么都有。你娘嘞，印章是怎样帮对方许愿
？Just that one turn window is what Azul was hoping for. Clinging on to, did the best he could to submit those prize cards, give himself a safe area to sort of play with, and a little bit of wiggle room, but just never came. Those reset stats weren't doing it for him.
在神仙打架
and we did see that Victini deck a little bit more tricksy in those last 2 games. We saw Heatran coming out. We had the possibility of Cramorant there.
受不了了，受不了了，看一场就受不了了。看我等下看完第2轮，我可能要去睡了。干这个好扯哦，我在看神仙打架哎。
What we've seen here is why Victini is so good. We saw Victini there that didn't even need Welder, because turn 1, Victini V Energy, turn 2, VMAX Energy, and you're doing what these Welder decks traditionally have not been doing. You're using boss's orders liberally, you're using Professor's Research. Whereas these old decks with Center Scorch and Reshiram and Charizard, Blacephalon, those kind of decks would have to really hone in on that Welder to get rolling.
伤害都是算的蛮好的，即便他的竞牌那么差。
It's a different kind of fire deck, and I think it might be legit, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, if Center Scorch just attached past, you'd be like, oh, we are in a terrible position. But Victini's like, it's not much, but it's honest work. I can do this. I can still get there. So Lucas basically did exactly that. He had, none of the big blowout turns. No Mewtwo coming down, Welder, GX with double blades and deal with inertia all in one turn. Didn't need the flashy stuff, just got ahead enough each turn, not getting carried away, keeping the board state, having some turns to use things like Spreading Flames to have the multiple threats established, which I think was, in the end, very good play for him. So yeah, got the job done slowly with that VMAX because, again, just so efficient when you come up against the V and VMAXs that are in the meta.
Yeah, doing that much for that little energy really is just silly. And if you're an Urshifu player right now, you got to watch that match thinking, hang on a second, I'm scared of the Mewtwo. If you're winning a best of 3 series without ever dropping a Mewtwo,
刚刚整场克
but
数
you
的超
still
梦
got
没看到
Mewtwo
啊
as an option, like that doesn't make you feel good as an Urshifu
意思是
player.
不会拿这个
Seeing
超
that
梦
these
来克
fire
数。
decks can do that, right?
Yeah, well, let's be fair.
啊
Azul
比克
did
提
have a
尼打
couple
就
of
够了
stumbling blocks along the way, a lot of missed switch outs, which was very unfortunate. A lot of missed attacks just in general. So he wasn't on all cylinders. He wasn't going max tempo, big, multiple prize knockouts with the G-Max rapid flow. There was basically always a Mew established to deny the big showcase highlight reel moments of the Urshifu. So Azul didn't really get everything going, and unfortunately his comeback mechanic in Stamp was faulty those games.
Yeah, that reset stamp did not put the work in. So we put one player through the first round of the winners bracket. We've dropped one player down into the losers bracket. So let's head on over to the bracket then and see who we are going to be featuring in our second game here. And it looks like we are going to be taking a little bit of a look at Jack Underwood and Mike Fouché.
Yeah, it's going to be Jack Underwood from OC and Mike from NA. And it's actually going to be a re-roll of the matchup. So
哇，
hopefully
其
you
实
want
下
to
下一
see
场
some more rapid strike action
很
alongside
精彩
the welder based
是那个
deck.
速
Now,
效王
Jack
打那个
isn't
控制王
playing the full complement of
可是他们
Victini
两个
VMAX. He
带的
is
牌都
more
跟
tag
预赛
team
不一样，
focused.
这
He's
是
playing
他们两个打，
Pressure
感觉
Charizard
这是
in the
真
high
正的
count.
神仙
So
打架。
that's really his approach. It's the archetype that he used to make it through to the global finals. So he's
我其实
really
记得那个
relying on the
Kevin
fire
什么的
stuff. He's
那个
actually
速
not
效王，我
playing
突然
any
想起来
Mewtwo and Mew
他好像
tag
之
team
前打
gems
花眼
either.
怪的时候
Seems like a nice one-off
就
include
就有达到
is
很前
possible,
面的
but
名次。
instead just going for the fire stuff.
Absolutely, and that's why I was saying earlier on, it's these fire decks are getting a little bit weird. Some have Victini
又是
and
连
Mew,
击
some
秀
have Victini,
大火
some
牌
have Mew, some don't really have either. It's a very weird kind of archetype around at the moment. But Mike, for his part, it's Rapid Strike Urshifu, and it's very similar to what we've seen before. I mean, both of these players are very, very well established. Mike, there we see we've got Philadelphia Regionals finalists. We've got a couple of top 16 at Regionals, top 8 at Regionals. And, Jack just sliding in like, hey, not to brag, but top 64 at Worlds.
Yeah, both these really accomplished players. Mike has been along for the ride for many, many years. He's been playing Pokemon for a long time, playing a very, very similar list to Azul, whereas Jack is making a bit of a change up with his welder list. So let's jump into this game one and see how it's going to go down. As we've just said, you
喷
don't
火
need
龙
Mewtwo
古月鸟
Mew
应该是有
to
挂
be
小
able
小
to
丑
beat the
吧
rapid strike
吧
matchup. Sometimes just efficient weldering is enough.
那个牌型长得很像是
It
会挂
is,
两只
but
小
I
小丑。
I'm putting
火
a
box
lot of the win from the last game onto Victini. I really do think Victini was the absolute, the prime Pokemon in that particular matchup. There isn't any Victini here, so it's going to be very interesting. There's no Mewtwo and Mew, there's no Victini. It is your kind of standard,
火牌选后
almost
攻
pre-battle styles firebox. And one thing we do need to mention, Jack isn't playing Mew, so there is no protecting the bench. That's pretty big.
Yeah, no Mew and no Blacephalon either, so no huge bursts of damage. It's very much Cramorant, very much Reshizard, and it has a double V as the late game sort of push. So kind of an old-fashioned approach of Tempo Zard, really, where there's not even any Crystal Blound shenanigans going on. No baby Blacephalon with Fire Crystals going crazy for like 400 damage. So Mike very much knows what damage he can sit out of range of this game, as he's going to kick off with a Stellar Wish here. Both players leaning into that Jirachi.
Yeah, it's always a nice start. I mean, in terms of starters, you can't really beat Jirachi. You get that extra trainer card turn one. Turns out it's going to be a quick ball for Mike, which is generally what you're looking for. Does drop the Jirachi GX straight away turn one, but knows that Jack is not playing Mewtwo and Mew. That is one of the huge advantages you can get as a really good player when you've got an open deck list tournament like we've got here.
Yeah, that's a huge relief for Mike, to be honest, because you got to put it down if they do play Mewtwo, but then you get punished by Cramorant anyway. So it's one of those things that if Jack had played a Mewtwo just to sort of have it as a threat, it could have forced Mike to, put down an extra Pokemon into play that's in range for a Cram. So I'm honestly surprised that there's no Mewtwo going on in here. It can
刚
only
刚常
copy
是
Reshiram and
半夜起来，
Charizard.
你要看比赛啦，
There are
看神
downsides to
仙
putting
打
in
架。
Mewtwo
你
because
刚才
you
没
can
看到
get,
第一组神仙打
response
架？
Mewtwo and it can get awkward at times, but it allows Mike a much easier turn one. He can go ahead and establish his rapid strike early.
看
Gets
这
the
加一
energy
起
drop
真的
down
是
as
毒
well.
瘤
Is
哎，
forced
每
to
个
just
每个
pass here.
好
The
好
best
多
of
牌
starts,
放
not
加一
super
起真的是
explosive,
强
but
到
he's
不
sitting on a
行。
decent hand size, and he's got everything he needed to do on turn one.
Yeah, like we said, you want to get the free energy VMAX going on turn two, and Mike is absolutely in line for that as it stands.
哦，没有小
Now,
小
we
丑。
do see Jack playing the Pokemon communication, having a little bit of a look there. Is going second, so that Volcanion would be a nice option to start getting some energy on the board. We do see that from Firedex a lot. Although, like we said, in the newer builds that Firedex was seeing with Victini, etc., it's a lot less important than it is in these Welder Box, Blacephalon, Center Scorch kind of decks we've seen in the past. So it's an interesting one, but I mean, you've got to think you're going second. Generally speaking, Volcanion's a good option, right?
Wow, I would have loved to see a Reshizard here. Rope and look for the Reshizard is such a ridiculous win condition. It's still open for him though. Okay, so he is going down this route. I love this. Aggressive escape rope. Get that attachment, try and double blaze into this Urshifu. You could even have Cream on top with Scoop Up Net Zigzagoons for a crazy KO. Oh my goodness, we're getting there. It's happening.
没有龙接攻，亏爆了。
Big Stellar Wish coming in here.
Yeah, Welder would be huge. There is the Welder!
Oh my god, 有了，我错了，龙接攻他来了。
Jack are thinking, you know what? I can KO that Urshifu.
Let's go in. There we go. He's got the switch.
了你娘嘞，太强了，八神仙打架哦。
Insane. The Reshizard is going to be taking a huge 2 prizes.
我看了什么？
Wipe Mike's only threat off the board turn 1.
我看了什
You
么？
can go ahead and play the crystal here. It's the same as just not, because you can just discount it with the heart.
Oh,
exactly.
我看了什么？
Mike's got the sad face. Mike knows what's going
哇塞，
on.
我真的想不到会死欸。
Switch and the Welder. There goes the Welder, and now Reshiram and Charizard is going to do that thing that it can do. Hit for 200 on turn 1, combined with the Galarian Zigzagoon is a very improbable turn 1 KO. Mike did not think that was a realistic chance, but you have been putting up, since we started this broadcast, Joe, you've been going on about Escape Rope, because it is a super important reprint that we've just had, and there, I think, is one of the best examples you will see of how gosh darn good it can be.
We call this deck
屁啦！我
Tempo
看
Zard,
这
and
个
that is why. That was a
这也
crazy
太屌了
turn.
吧！
Able to get
为什
3
么这样杀
energies
得
in
死
play,
啊？
gust the opponent's active,
想不到吧
and take Zigzagoon prizes to respond. That is a crazy turn. Mike having to respond with a Marnie here. Jack had the option to Oranguru to protect cards. The only real card he would have wanted to protect would be like something like Quick Ball, I would have thought.
看真的是
That's
想不
not
到
doing too
吧
much,？but he's still so far ahead.
想不
The
到
best thing
吧
about Reshiram and Charizard is if people start hitting into
你
you,
死了吧
Outrage is just there. So he's fine just turn attaching for the next few turns and still will be taking prizes, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you've used the GX attack, which means you've got the 4 energy 230, so, you know, all Jack needs to do is top deck or find his way into a boss's orders, and that's actually a KO on another Urshifu next turn, which is a little bit silly.
Yeah, his hand is, you know, even just
看，如果我刚才被那样子杀死，会有
Mike
阴
is
影。
forced to VMAX at some point during this
好
game.
扯
I
哦！
would
我连
imagine
地熊
he's not
220
gonna
滴，
get
想也
the
想不到我
these
喷火
two
龙
prize Pokemon.
可以下2合
Mike is
龙
able to
接攻加
reestablish,
加理动
that
神，然后把我
Urshifu.
给杀
No
了。
attachment coming in, just having to
我操
sacrifice
嘞！
this
干
Jirachi
神仙打架，神
here.
仙
Jack
打
even
架
draws
喷
a
笑
switch
的
now,
呀
so！he can Stellar Wish for a supporter. Doesn't find one, but can Quick Ball his way out of this now. This is getting even more dicey. It could be another Boss's Orders Flare Strike play. Another Urshi could be going down this turn if
我
everything
刚
goes
才
to
我
plan.
刚才如果超梦
This
如果
could
先
work
下，
very nicely. We've got
那这个
Crobat,
龙接
we've got
攻
Dedenne, either of those could draw
会被
cards.
马上
Or
来。
Nguru if you wanted to
18
go a
还不错
slower, more consistent route. But having said that, Jack's hand is very bad, so does want to get some kind of draw going on. But, you know, do you go Crobat and a little bit of protection on your hand, or do you go for Dedenne, which will get you more cards but lose some resources? Looks like we got Crobat, bearing in mind you've always got the option to Dedenne after a Crobat, which there's a Quick Ball in hand, so it's doable.
谢恩
Yeah,
机
I
球
can see
该
that. I
超
can see
梦
you
了
going for it.
吧
I'm？ surprised we didn't see the
还
scoop
不
up
该
now before
吗
the Crobat, because you're almost always going to be going into Reshizard here. You have no other attacking option, to be honest. There's nothing better than the Reshizard, even if it takes the 1 prize here. He is going to re-establish, or thinking about re-establishing this Jirachi. If you're going to Dedenne change, you might just want to go ahead and leave that other board space open for a potential like double play or something else.
刚刚如果上一回就盖，是不是舒服很多啊？
And we are just going to see the Flare Strike here. So making sure he has draw for next turn. And if he does get Marnied again, it's straight back into a Welder, which is a good option for him. Like we say, this 1 prize is still very solid. Overall, not a bad turn for Jack. It wasn't the big push we were hoping to see, but it's still enough right now.
Yeah, and you have 3 prizes to 0 at this stage, so you really don't need, I'm a fan of the big push. It's really exciting to watch it on stream, but sometimes taking a prize, going up, and we do see the money coming down.
现在这边买起来就比较舒服了吧
Jack is going to be top decking a welder, so as long as there is at least 1 fire energy, which there isn't at the moment,
这个被码完
Jack will be
高
able to
几率
use
是
that
没能
welder
量
to
了
start getting rolling next turn.
1 2 3 4 5
Mike's
6
finally found himself with an energy drop. He can start hitting
我刚才看他
into
能
this
量
record
好像
from
10颗
Charizard
吧
if he wants to, getting to work on it. We are going to see the communication to establish
我要被
that
连击
VMAX.
凶踹
So he could be
190
Gale thrusting for 150
不过他这个力
damage.
顶下去也是痛到不
Dojo
行
not able to work on special energies, so going to be settling for 150 right now and hoping that his VMAX can go the distance because there's still not much else going for him.
No, and I don't.
Oh,
I mean,
没有
you
基本
can
斗
outrage here if you're Jack because you're
Yep.
doing a bunch of damage, and then I mean, if you 2-hit KO this VMAX, you win the game. It really is as simple as that. So Jack has not
What's
got a
got
fire
150
energy, though. Got the
150
welder,
is
no
挺舒服
fire
的
energy, so could just outrage. Remember, you can't use that big 230 attack 2 turns in a row.
直接果
But
断
it
逆
does look like that's what he's going for. Knows that Mike has to switch out and come active. No, he doesn't. I'll tell you what, because if he attaches an energy, that 120 will be enough to exactly
Yep.
get a KO.
Yep, so he can be going for that G-Max Rapid Flow, but the Urshifu is still super vulnerable, and Jack's kind of putting him into a bit of a trap here, it seems, because
Yeah.
he's feinted a really poor hand when really he's actually not many steps away from being pretty explosive. Mike is going to go for a boss's orders play. and
罚站吗
thanks to this, he's going to leave the Mewtwo active and force more out of Jack by the looks of things. Yeah, he's going to take a 4-prize KO, going to put himself
Oh,
one Gale
是不
thrust
是要
away
拼
from
毛
win,
毛
and
角
now
羊
Jack
了
needs a little bit more than he needed before to take this response here. I think he was mostly just bored
18是要
off.
拼
That's
毛
why he
角羊
was
了
worried about putting anything down last turn. And Mike trying to make it as awkward as possible for Jack, but there is going to be some double plays coming in.
毛毛角羊也是
that
弱
was
斗
a
哦
really good turn from Mike there, making sure that Mewtwo is stuck in the active. And
但是
this
这个
is
3
why
能
we're
敲得
seeing
死
a
就是毛毛
lot
角
of
羊
players in
哦
this tournament play Mew. Mew is a one of in a lot of decks. We've had gander through the deck list and seen it. It really is prevalent. And because Rapid Strike Urshifu, it's the most played deck in this tournament. Now, obviously the players didn't know that coming in, but like you say, there's unofficial online tournaments,
下
there's
接拉
chats
起
between
下东
groups.
鼠嘛
People knew that that deck was going to be
直接
showing
懂了
up. So we do see the Dedenne coming down here.
有了
And we
吗
got Welder,
还差
we got
换
an
位
energy, we got Fire Crystal, we got Cherish Ball. Oh, that Oricorio is going to be
draws.
nice.
Yeah, 6 draws for a switch out by the looks of things. You can Welder with the
抽 3
Fire
张
Crystal, and yeah, you can dance the entrance first. It doesn't matter. There's a rope. That's not the switch out that you want.
还是没有哦
That was a
Let's
switch, it would
see.
be game.
He plays two ropes and 4 switch.
There it is.
有了
So
Goodbye
Jack holding
撒
on
又
to
拿
a
了
sleeper hand.
拼到了
And was able to capitalize on that with his double V. Does play the switch now and can take the Revenge Blast KO here to finish off the VMAX that Mike was able to establish.
That's why we play Double V. It's a very, very nice card, exactly for that. It is your classic one-off late-game sweeper, and it absolutely
刚好
did
我
its job.
阿昌一直在讲怎么输的时候，
Yeah, I mean,
耳
typically
边真的
you
有那个
expect
阿昌的声音，
Cephalon to
输
be the
怎么
partner
输
for these Welder Box
哦
decks,
怎么
but,
输
the double is
然后
super
把摊手
efficient
牌
late
给我
game,
看
and Jack's just saying, I'm going to get manied all the time. I'm going to get reset stamped all the time. Why would I play a card that needs me to have like a huge combination of like 10 different things? When
哎
I just
不
have
是
double,
他
he does the
他那
job
个
very
火牌
actually
选
good
后攻
against,
啊
the
就这样
VMAXs,
子
but
直接把
when you
连
are
击
able
熊
to
杀
get
了
early hits on
我
the
实在是
the VMAXs instead of the tag teams, you can just 2-shot them instead. So the early tempo from that escape rope was, pole vaulting him ahead in that game, and the
我
double
我
was enough
这
to
就
close.
这讲不出话来，干你
Absolutely.
娘
Well,
是
the
刚才
beginning
妈的
of
看到
that
神
game was
仙。
absolutely huge. So let's run on over into game 2 then. See if
我跟你
things
讲，
are
我
gonna
我
be
只
a
要看
little
到
bit
那个速，
different.
我
I
只
think
想要
let's
看
not
完
be
那个
thinking
速
that-
效网跟孔
I
子
know
网。
that that was a bad thing last game, but come on. There's no way that happens again.
干我没有加起啊，你跟我拿加起干嘛？
And it may be one of those things where Mike, now being aware of it, may end up having to put down things like Jirachi GX just because it's a Pokemon that can get roped into instead. We saw his quick ball turn 1 just got rid of that Jirachi because he said, I don't need it for the matchup, but when there's rope in the equation, you sometimes have to make the
干
suboptimal
伤心
lines
病
just to
狂
play
哎
around,
不让
the
火
two
牌
options
选
Jack's using.
不让火牌选后攻哎。
Absolutely, and I'm looking here. There is quick ball double scoop up there in Jack's hand, so there is the potential there for You know, same kind of thing going on next turn.
我只有地鼠，我干他龙接攻，龙接攻卡2个奖励哦。
I always quite like it when the pieces are starting off there. So we do see a Pokemon communication, and this is where you see a lot of these players. They'll have a look through their deck. They're trying to figure out which cards are in their prizes, because what you don't want to do is play towards a particular route only to find out the card you're looking for is stuck in your prizes. But it's a Jirachi because Jirachi is great at getting you extra cards, so kind of has to be done.
对啊，
awkward quick ball
但是我不会拿我不会拿到吉拉，我没有吉拉起啊，大哥。
We could see Jack's bench filling up a lot here very quickly.
Ooh, nice. Jack picks up the switch
干
out.
哦，智慧星许愿啊！
Double, rest in peace. You were really helpful in game 1, but
哦，
not
好。
that good showing this game. It looks like gonna get discarded. We do find the giant hearth now as
智
well.
慧星许愿啊！
Backup Rechizard. Fin a couple fires out the deck, so you get your turn attachments, but also improving your odds for Stellar Wish here.
Yeah, this has turned into a really, really strong turn. That one switch out was just from the one card off the Oran Guru has made all the difference. And now we see we've got the energy on the Reshizard. And again, this is big. It's all about the numbers, because now there's an energy on. Next turn, energy welder. Well, that's 230 damage, which is enough to get a KO.
你自己再提醒我一下，明天大家再提醒我一下，去螃蟹的时候要帮你拿转交。
Does the job just as well in the end.
And Jet's gonna get moneyed out of a pretty solid hand into a pretty
哦，
solid
马
hand.
了一个龙接攻上来了，干这让火牌先攻是对的吗？
And Stellar Wish here looks like no actions from their own Marnie. Maybe just getting the information of Wish first, because obviously is still.
你在嗷呜等我就好了吧？我螃蟹拿完会过去。
Does find Quick Ball, so at least he's got some options here. Maybe to Dene GX if his hand isn't solid. If it's all good, he can go for the Urshifu here.
And Mike knows that Jack is playing Escape Rope, and he saw how great a use Jack made of it last turn. So Mike's got to be thinking, well, not only do I need to set up this Urshifu, but actually setting up Urshifu and only having Urshifu, that means if my opponent gets Welder and their attachment for the turn, bearing in mind they've already got Giant Half to get the 2 energy for the Welder,
感觉鸟射他160也是挺不舒服。
That's a KO if I've only got that on my bench. So it's those extra steps, like we were talking about with having to get the Mew, even though you don't really want to get the Mew. Now we're saying, well, you can't just get this one Pokemon, because Welder and Boss's Orders, not happening. Welder and Escape Rope, yeah, that'll do.
Mike is going to deliberate and finally take an Urshifu, does get his early game energy drop, is going to put down that Mimikyu, and I'm pretty certain this is entirely because of Escape Rope. You can try and use it to shadow box out an Oricorio many turns down the line, potentially, but he's essentially just saying, let's not have that happen again. That was really nasty, game 1.
And now there's a bench space being used that you'd rather not be using, so you got an extra Pokemon out that's... Oh, and there is the Escape
Oh my
Rope.
god.
So actually, yeah, that
哇，他要
Mimikyu
防
is
移动神
huge.
嘞！
That just saved a KO, because Jack's got everything on the board that he needs right now to get the KO.
Yeah, I think it's going to be rinse and
5
repeat.
月
It's
你
still
要
gonna be
开
the same
设
play.
喽
You could go for Cramorant
你
if
躲
you
后
really
面
want
也
to,
没
and just
用
set up
哦。
the Urshifu instead. That's also pretty reasonable. Not going to wish. You definitely want to get the wish in while you can.
Oh, yes.
A free wish is always good. You may want to grab backup Welder here, especially if you're going for Cramorant plays. Yeah, this tells me it's probably he's going for the spit shot here onto Urshifu.
Yeah, and you got to do this.
哦，你轩辕，我在水源，吉拉奇上来吧。
Yeah, they probably won't.
怕了吧？
We've all been there.
And yeah, the rope is actually going to benefit Mike. He can keep that.
这样子刚刚拿Switch会不会比较好？他免费让佳琪上来换位，感觉他刚才那个迷你 Q 还要换个位，也是挺不舒服。
So you probably wisdom back the
苍
to the top of your deck.
老大，
Does he find energy?
我以为
That's
会从龙
much
接
better
攻
for him. That makes his turn so much better next time. Oh, sorry, yeah, for next turn he can then full crystal, full welder. So it's just gonna be a spit shot onto the Urshifu. Here, setting it up. Ooh, wow. Deep catch plays instead.
No,
Oh, he's going for
gonna be an-
Zigzagoon and Outrage.
哇
now.
塞，
I like
这个
this,
操
but
作
I
又
was
是怎么
just
回
saying,
事？
We know if Mike's got a good hand, because Mike's
这操作又是怎么回
got
事
one card hand. And if it's not something like a Dedenne or a Professor's Research, etc., and maybe it is maybe
这是一个硬要杀佳琪的战术吗？
This is kind of a game-winning play by Jack if Mike doesn't have a good card. So I like
我
that.
们
You're taking. You said free
我
wishes are
干
always
你娘的，
good.
又不知道要
You know
讲
what's
什么
not
了。
good? No wishes.
So yeah, Mike.
这我真的想不到是不是人家打得上去想得到，我想不到，所以我打不上去。不对啊，他手上还是有博士啊。
So Mike was sat on the supporter. We'd hope it wasn't just the top deck. And he is going to start.
硬杀这个机器有很赚吗
？Start Gale thrusting. There is the option to start taking multiple knockouts with Gmax Rapid Flow as well. You can even set up the Reshizard with 120, and you take like a one prize knockout on possibly.
看如果对面是断手牌的，杀了这个机器真的漂亮到不行。
Yeah, I think this is looking very, very strong. Because at the end of the day, you've taken a cheeky prize, you're not getting KO'd this turn, there's more cheeky prizes coming, and actually, you've got a 2-energy Cramorant just kind of sitting there chilling on the bench. So at any point, you can attach for turn and get a spit shot off. So, you know, Mike knows I can bench a Dene, but if I do, I'm giving up 2 prizes.
机器跟以前的小丑真是用法都一样，疯狂的甩，甩头甩头。赶快2场结束啊！这样子我等下可以高速看下一场啊。林北被捆了啦。
If Mike needs to push, you can always punish that with that Cramorant, especially with Zigzagoon in the equation where you can even deal with Crobats and stuff. So yeah, very solid from Jack to have the double threat established and denying that wish. Mike has done a few dances of his own Jirachi and is going to go ahead and quick ball out that Crobat. We see another energy drop onto Urshifu, and it's going to be a Crobat for 5 here, looking for VMAX and switch outs by the looks of things.
You would think so. Now, I did have a cheeky gander. We saw it again. Only 1 scoop up net having been played by Jack up to now. That is nice. It means there are 3 left in the deck. So that Crobat really is not safe.
Yeah, that's certainly relevant. And let's see what Mike is able to piece together. It's 5 cards. You don't really want to continue to go fishing with the Dene GX because, as we say, it can so quickly be punished by Cramorant. So let's see how Mike can go about doing this. If he's able to piece together any attack whatsoever, gonna see a rope by the looks of things. It's a tough call for Jack because all these cards are very good.
感觉他等于
Yeah, you want the Reshiram and Charizard to take the hit so you can start outraging. So you put Jirachi up and oh, now we do see the Dene hit the board here. So this is starting to look like Cramorant, which remember does have a resistance to fighting. It's starting to look like Cramorant could be putting in some real work, and we saw that in the Players' Cup too. Cramorant is it's a pretty good card in the right matchup.
When played right, Cramorant is a real weapon, and
对面手填过了吗？
another Urshifu.
没有
His
仔
board
细
is now
看，
full. Is there going to be anything but a 30 damage strafe here?
应该还没手填过，手填过也太智障了。
There's the VMAX, but that doesn't count. You must get it into the active after it becomes a VMAX. That VMAX did not come active this turn. Now we see the air balloon, and if we see
哇塞，硬要滑上来。
now we're going to see a KO.
Yeah, we are going to see the Gale Thrust for full.
看对面的这那个连击熊的换位是他妈无限可以使用的。
Does find the way to actually get the KO here, and it's down to Jack to see where he wants to piece together his prize cards. There's an easy spit shot available. And it's also, there are some big benefits to having Cram in the active. It has a nice resistance to fighting, so it's an awkward Pokemon to deal with for Mike. Jack actually does pick up the boss's orders as well, if he wants to, but it feels like a welding play is on the
手填160老大开喷吗？
Welder is absolutely huge. We are going to see the Welder, and it's going on to the Reshiram and Charizard. Looking to hit an energy, didn't actually hit one, so now has to play the Fire Crystal to get the energy for Cramorant, but you're getting 2 back. It's not a bad use of it. And it does look like the spit shot is on board, and it's easy prizes. Bearing in mind, when you start drawing into scoop up net, there's easy prizes potentially on the Crobat as well, which means a 3rd spit shot or a boss's orders or something. Jack can potentially play the rest of this game just ignoring the Urshifu.
Yeah, if need be, that is on the table. It's always pretty efficient. Oh, nice. A nice crystal pick up. Wow. What an insane cards to pick up to help him have some more gas to get over the line here. Mike is going to be looking to get double Gmax Rapid Flow. I think that's really the path he's looking for, if possible. Because there's 5 prize cards out there for him that he needs to take. You can try and do a Rapid Flow this turn, where you set up the Reshizard, potentially. maybe you just set up Reshizard and take a 1 prize, and then you're going for no. That's a difficult path for you. It's not easy here. You need to
真的
weave
是
in
怎么
boss's
样都
orders
想的跟我们
to
不
deal
一样
with
哎。
the Dene to win in 2 turns, I think.
Do. And I'm thinking he needs to V-max, because with Lysander's, or Boss's Orders Lysander in hand, and a switch, that Urshifu V on the bench is absolutely vulnerable. This is not going to be a KO.
哇，我
but
这
a
印下
reset
去
stamp as well,
没有积压起
and we're，
我
clearly
看
working on a
看
2-hit
下面
KO
印章
for
诶
3 prizes.
下面印章也是提供啊，哎，这个视角，这个视角印章舒服吧？
Nicely done.
这个
And
印
this
章
is subgame
印下
next
去
turn, right? If he
什么
finds
都有
energy
哎。
boss's orders, you can Gmax rapid flow the Reshizard that you've just hit and deal with the Dene GX.
妈的
again.
见
So
鬼嘞
this is Mike's！
他
path.
印章
You
永
go
远
frost
撵
once,
着
and
东
then
东
you go
水，
for
印
the
章绑
Gmax
定东
rapid
东鼠，
next turn.
你娘嘞！
Jack doesn't find any nice well.
这个是3张，刚才那个1张更
He's
扯。
just hoping that Mike's 3-card hand can't make a good enough push. You're probably just going to be forced to Flare Strike here.
Yeah, I think that's got to be the play. It's not ideal by any
啊，
stretch
这
of the
个
imagination.
这个
and
这个
Mike
逆鳞
really
哦，
set
他们这个
himself
奖
up
励算的
nicely
好
here.
准哦，
And
我的
this is
天呐！
why so many people are playing
逆鳞
Mew
加
with a
加
Mew
加古
on
月，
Jack's side of the board. Then Mike's win
反正
condition
奖励
play
实在
here
算的
just
太准。
would not be possible. Now that is something you. Oh no, it's not even that great. Larger hand. I keep thinking Mike's gonna win next turn. He must have like 1 prize remaining. No.
No, just the 5. I mean, that is realistically one of the best parts about the Urshifu is that you can map out those prizes without being vulnerable to reset stamp. It's a huge advantage that you have being able to pick off multiple Pokemon at once. Let's see if Mike can make that push. Attach boss's orders is all we need.
不对，我真的觉得他们的操作跟真的是有点强欸。哇塞哇塞，梦幻下来了，梦幻下来了，会不会又不一样啊？
Can take a 4 prize turn. Can't take a 5 prize turn.
Actually, he does play Great Catcher. I don't think it's been used yet. There could be an insane high roll still.
I did not even consider the Great Catcher. That would be.
Here we
That
go.
would be a
Could be
win.
wishing
梦
for
幻
it.
下来了，
Oh, this would be huge.
再一个换位，
Ah, it's
干妈连吉雄的换位是用不用钱的，4张Switch， 4个理动神，4个回收网。
Should have spotted that. I love Great Catcher.
4张
into the
Switch.
Dene. It's one of the best tricks in the format at the moment. It's one of the reasons why Crobat is so much better than Dedenne in some circumstances, because it's a Pokemon.
直接用滑的把它滑死。
It really has been peeking its way back in lately. It kind of fell out of favor, and now an awful lot of decks are playing it as a one-of. Now we do see the Dedenne. So, there
wow.
is the Great Catcher. He had it all along.
We're pushing for energy now. He's Dene
哇
changing
塞
into an energy，
哎
card. That's all
哎，
we
要
need to
赢
see.
了，要赢了吗？要赢了吗
6
Six
cards,
cards.
1 energy.
？Oh my god！
There,
There it is.
there it goes.
我高潮了。
2 energy, in fact. So G-Max Rapid Flow will KO the active Dedenne and the Bench Pressure Ram and Charizard, taking 5 prizes in a single attack. And if you were looking at the prize counter, it did not look like Mike was doing a very good job in that game.
哎，我真的半夜不能，我完全跟不上他们，完全跟不上。
Rapid Strike Urshifu being able to attack 2 Pokemon at once.
那怎么赢呢？
Plenty of times in the history of the game. It is
嘿
absolutely.
请问一下，连吉雄是不是打从一开始就知道这样子会赢？ 真是太猛了。
Into Tag Team GX Pokemon. That 150 does such a great number.
怎么赢呢？ 怎么赢呢？
Mike also plays Zigzagoon to play around with numbers just in case it's something like an ADP and alike. But yeah, when there's no Mew in the equation, Rapid Strike is super dangerous. And like you say, you can map out those prize cards in a really nice way.
干你娘！我每次看完都不知道讲什么。
And just have game
看到无言。
really solid attack.
And I think if you're in a format like we are, we've seen 25%, 1/4 of the field here is
哇，这难怪他们刚才超梦打死都不下来，这太容易直接被全部奖励拿光光。5奖就是1张东东鼠加滑一下，就死光光了。
Mew is going to low-key be one of the most important cards for players in this tournament if these Rapid Strike decks progress through the bracket. If they don't, it's not an issue. But if they do, it's pretty big.
Yeah, and Jack is really like under-teched, if that makes sense. You'd almost expect a Mew to be in the deck. You'd expect a Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX to be in a welding deck because it, again, can just be like a huge burst of damage. So, yeah, maybe a few tweaks there would have made his time a little bit easier as we go into this game to see who's going to come out on top. Now, the good news is that Jack lost, and welded decks love going second. They are far more dangerous when they get to weld on turn 1.
They really are. So let's head on over to game 3 then, see how it's going to go. Remember, Jack might be under tech for this matchup, but did end up taking game 1. But then again, maybe at this stage you're thinking, well,
感觉有加起的连吉雄真的是 OP 到不行欸。
ridiculous turn 1 play. Is that realistic to expect to happen again? Is promoting Reshiram and Charizard to start the game rather than that Volcanion which can accelerate energy? So, thinking about it.
怎么看到我们全开放的连击熊应该也是要跟加一起配啊？这实在是太 OP 了。
and try and start welder smacking. That's what Jack's saying. The Volcanions are here as a fallback plan, but when they're one prize 120 hit point Pokemon and you don't play Mew, it's really, really bad to put these into play. It's just too slow. So instead, Jack's going to say, let's try and ramp energies the old-fashioned way with Welder instead.
And we do see the Mew coming down to block any potential Cramorant plays, which again was something we didn't see from Mike in the previous game, at least not at the perfect time. Oh, and that's why, because a Dedenne, Cramorant's favorite snack, is actually hitting the field here.
Yeah, a few awkward cards hitting that discard pile as Mike has not been able to find an Urshifu V just yet. You really hate to see your Karate Belt go into the discard pile. It's a really great way you can get surprise KOs with that G-Max Rapid Flow. And Mike, still waiting, does have the Quick Ball though, so can go ahead and establish that Urshifu V. Looking for an energy drop as well, but overall not the worst start for him.
No, not too bad at all. He's got the Quick Ball there. We imagine that's going to turn into an Urshifu. It'd be a bit weird if he didn't. And, I mean, one of the key numbers in Pokemon for a long time has been 120. A lot of Pokemon, like my boy Excadrill, naturally
下面的火霸是没看错的话，是不是没梦幻呢？
And now it's almost become doubly important because of Urshifu. So things like Volcanion, we've seen so many of these bigger basic Pokemon in the past have 130, and there's a real question in terms of whether they come through with 120 or 130. But now it's so much more important because that could be an extra easy prize for an Urshifu player. Mike doesn't get an energy drop there. All does get the Quick Ball, and I'm thinking Quick Ball double scoop up net for Zigzagoon.
I don't know if we're going that route. I think possibly just go for Jirachi into Dedenne. You want to have the most odds for the Welder. That's still your bread and butter. You can't expect that Dedenne is going to be enough. You always got to give yourself maximum odds. I like where your head's at, but it's pretty aggressive to go straight for the Zigzagoon because, you know, Mike's already protected around the rope right now.
No, absolutely. And you're right. It would be a silly play, but I don't know.
感觉这水火神只是拿来打速效用。
Teased us. He's shown us the big gigantic turn 1. But we saw, and you know, it's a classic example of players adapting. Mike saw that happen in game 1, and we've seen a real dedicated push in games 2 and 3, where Mike is going, that is not happening again. There is no way I'm letting that happen again. And it's just, I mean, it might not have been an option game 1, might not have been able to, although he discarded a Jirachi GX, if I remember.
Yeah.
So I suppose could have protected, but it's just one of those things. Now the Volcanion does hit the field, and it looks like Jack is gearing up for a potential energy acceleration turn rather than a big attack.
Yeah, I think so. We said in the opening that you really don't want to lean into this too much, but when Mike misses energy drop, you have that leeway to actually flare starter instead. So Jack identifying this and saying, yeah, the time is it's a pretty good time for me to get this in while I can, rather than go digging with Dedenne with a chance to whiff and then I'm not doing much. Alternatively, with this Cherish Ball pickup, he could have gone Cherish Ball for Dedenne GX and then communicationed in the Volcanion and turn that into a Zigzagoon. Then you Zigzagoon ping the active, attach and Dedenne change and hope to weld for 1. But here, he's committing to the flare starter instead. Could still weld
起来会没火能吗？为什么要先舔呢？
But no welders in sight. No, the lack of welder does make it a lot more difficult to pull off the welder plays.
对面也没有手舔到。
It's just gonna be some energy acceleration, which isn't too bad. You feel, like you say, you feel so much better about this with Mike missing the energy drop. We've still got a potential 150 to KO on the Volcanium, but we're not going to, for instance, see a double KO on the Volcanion and Jirachi, which would have been an issue. Incidentally, a KO on the Jirachi would have opened the door potentially for a Rapid Strike Energy Karate Belt double KO. So that is something we do need to be thinking. The combination of Karate Belt and Rapid Strike Energy is a really powerful one, But I'm now looking at the deck list. Mike only plays one Karate Battle, and it's already hit the discard.
And more resources hitting the discard pile with a big Professor's Research there. That's his reset stamp gone. That's always something you can use in the latter stages of the game to protect against, especially Welder decks, which rely on only drawing a +3 from Welder, which is in itself a situational draw card. But it looks like he's finally found himself a VMAX. Can go ahead, if he's able to find the attachment and a switch out and initiate a prize race here with an early Gale Thrust. You love taking one prize because then your map becomes the same as last game. Try and Gale Thrust into a G-Max Rapid Flow onto Dene in the active and Reshizard on the bench. When there's no Mew in the equation, it's a really easy route for him.
I mean, it's 4 attacks, and then, or is it 3 attacks, sorry? Because you can't, 3 attacks, and then that's it. And that's literally 6 prizes to win the game. And I think Mike saw how well it worked out in game 2, and it really was kind of unstoppable. Jack is really struggling to get the big KOs because there's no Blacephalon there, and there's no Mewtwo. Those big KO potentials just aren't there like they are in some of these other Welder decks. And I think you're right. I think Mike has basically got to be thinking, same as last game.
Stellar Wish is going to hit an escape rope. That could even be better for Mike, actually, in this situation. You'd much prefer to deal with a Jirachi to deny Jack from Stellar Wishing. And if Jack chooses any of the other targets, that's also just additional prize cards and also helps your map. So the rope could be well timed here if we are going to see us Gale Thrust this turn.
Do you still need an energy? You got to imagine there's like 7 cards in hand, but haven't actually seen the energy on the Urshifu yet. So we still need that. And these Urshifu, they're very consistent decks. You know, 1 energy on a V max. It's not a lot to ask for. We do see a Quick Ball getting a backup Urshifu V here, so bring me the energy.
Yeah, that tells us that he's not having to go digging with Dedenes or Crobats, or he already has those options in hand. Mike is going to go ahead and play the escape rope now. It forces Jack to feed the Jirachi, which is really good for Mike because, you know, Jack was really needing this wish to get out of an awkward hand, and now it's just worse for him.
He's got to bench the Jirachi and then switch into it and then find a way to get it out of the active. It's not really the position you want to be in. We do see a Crobat coming down, drawing Mike up to 6 cards in hand. But we've got the Air Balloon on the Mew, we've got the energy on the Urshifu, so we're just going to see a Gale Thrust here, taking the KO on that Jirachi.
不会等一下又是要3+2就结束了吧？
Yeah, Mike made a pretty good hedge there. He said, I could Dene change for 6 cards or Crobat for 4, but the downside of me putting another Dene in is that the Cramorant can come in. Even with Mew in the equation, it's still something you want to play around. Or potentially he's holding on for pieces for next turn, like Rapid Strike Energies, for example. So just going to draw the 4, does finally find himself the good old attachment, and is going to take the first prize here. So his map, as we keep saying, is really easy now. The Dene and Reshizard are the only things he wants to be attacking. Jack has switched into the Jirachi that was in hand and has found himself a Welder, which is pretty handy.
He has, but where does he go from here? You know, we've got the Reshizard there, so
龙接工抽3张
still
牌
gonna take 6 prizes, but he knows that with the right hand, Mike is on a 2-turn clock to win. It is attack for 150 into the Reshizard, and then do the big attack onto Reshizard on the bench to Dene in the active, and that is it. And because we've got Great Catcher in Mike's deck, that's a potential there, so he doesn't necessarily need boss's orders 2 turns in a row. So, you know, if Jack attacks here,
小水火上去
then
摸
actually
110
Mike just needs a Great Catcher to actually finish out the game. Attacking with Reshiram and Charizard almost does a lot of Mike's work for him by having the Pokemon in the active that Mike wants to be attacking. So that's why we got to see the high heat blast here for 110.
Yeah, and look how many helpful 1 prize Pokemon is in Jack's hand that are just not usable because Mike is threatening, again, the easy 2 prizes in that regard. That's the stranglehold that the G-Max Rapid Flow can have on archetypes. You just sort of lay it out there and say, I'm going to spread. And looks like Mike does have, wow, here we go. The boss's rapid energy combo. He's going to take a 2 prize knockout and set up Reshiram and Charizard, needing just a Gale Thrust to win the game. Yeah,
这个只要对面有下东东鼠都打鸡鸡耶。
I think Mike has absolutely taken a hold over this game because what does Jack do here? I mean, he's got to attack. He can attack with Volcanion, but he loses to a Great Catcher, bearing in mind that Reshiram and Charizard is a GX, or Lysander, or Boss's Orders Lysander, or he can attack with the Reshizard, but then he loses to a Fighting Energy.
干啊，这样打鸡鸡哦，他滑上来150
That's not a
就
good
死掉
place
了
to。be. There's a lot of outs. Mike's only hit one all
拼
game.
音章
So there's a lot of Fighting Energy rooting around that deck for Mike. We don't see many combat cards in Jack's hand. No reset stamp hit for him. Really doing that G-Max Rapid Flow stranded this Reshiram and Charizard. Basically made these 5 energies almost redundant because Jack doesn't want to attack with this. It's too easy for Mike to take a
只能
response
拼
here.
音章哎。
I mean, he can actually do the big version of the GX attack that hits for 300 and goes through anything, and that will take a KO. But like we say, if that happens, you're basically crossing your fingers and going, I hope you don't have an energy card, because if you do, Mike's got game. It really is as simple as that. And I think you've got to take the KO, but you're not getting a KO with anything else. So, I mean, do you hit with Volcanion and try and build over the next couple turns? Which doesn't seem like a great idea. Or do you hit with Reshiram and Charizard and literally pin your entire game on your opponent not having an energy card? I think we're going to see a Dedenne searching for the reset stamp, but I think Jack is it's a real uphill struggle, as I suppose.
哇，印章来了。
Ooh, here we go. Last chance saloon. Reset stamp is here.
啊，不过对面加起还在欸。
KO doesn't need to GX. He's holding the GX for potentially later stages, and we are going to see Cherish Ball here. Not going for Oricorio, which could have netted him a few more cards, thinking that I'm going to have this one turn of panic where I use this Reshizard, and then I'll make another one straight after, because you can't leave it in the active too long.
No, I kind of want to see the GX just because we never see the full GX on Reshiram and Charizard. But you're right, it is enough just to get the 230 there. So we do see the free prizes.
究竟这个线上版印章有没有用呢？接下去甩个头，高几率也是动得起来啦。印章才3张。
That tells us he's digging for supporter, right? Oh, just find switch. That's not something he wants. Maybe more wishes coming in. Mike hasn't found the out just yet. He can put down that Jirachi, free retreat back into it, wish one more time. Look for research and then just play the switch that he's picked up. Everyone's wishing for more wishes today. It's never that easy for her.
Marty.
Now we do see the Marnie coming. I mean, you've got to imagine there's going to be an energy here. I mean, can Jack really win by his opponent whiffing energy off a reset stamp to free? Oh, does not, unfortunately. Mike gives the game away that he does have the energy. We know. Now we see the retreat into the Rapid Strike Urshifu. Gale Frost takes the KO, and Mike takes, in the end, a fairly straightforward 2 games in a row to finish out the series 2 games to 1.
我想看的对局可以睡觉了。
Rapid Strike archetype, and again, just reinforces that statement that Mew is so important because the prizes are just there on the board.
但他16强是一场一场播，不是一次打。
One prizes like Oranguru and Jirachi and even Zigzagoon to an extent. Everyone is using Crobat and Dedenne, which can just get punished so aggressively with Rapid Strike that only one attacker got knocked out that game, and Mike was still able to take the 6 prizes just by pinging off other Pokemon throughout.
Yeah, it's such a good matchup. And you know, like, Mike's been around the block several times here. One of the best players around. One of the real people that's just been here, you know, for years and years, like you said earlier. And you know that was his plan going in. It's an open deck list tournament, so Mike went, right, he's not playing Mew. Here's what he's playing. Here has got to be his general game plan. This is my plan A. This is what I want to do. Game 1, we saw, was a complete aberration. Did not work. But games 2 and 3... it really did seem quite straightforward for Mike. And, you know, when we saw game 2, we went into game 3, and it really was a case of, unless something goes really wrong, or I suppose really right for the other player, Mike is going to just go through the motions and win this game. And actually an extremely favorable matchup in the end, because Reshiram and Charizard kind of
当然最后一场啊，速销王跟控制王啊，虽然说2个牌带的都不一样。
Yeah, it's one of those things where Jack's gone for like consistency welder by like cutting all the tips and tricks that you can and just trying to make the game plan go as solidly as possible. But realistically, Rapid Strike is powerful enough that you actually need some of these greedier cards. You need to play a Mewtwo and Mew. You need to play a regular Mew from Unbroken Bonds. You may even need things like Heat Fire Energy to keep your Reshiram and Charizard out of range, or Big Charm, those sorts of cards to really skew the numbers for the Urshifu, because it's just too perfect into most tag teams.
Yeah, 150 plus 120 really is just the absolute perfect number. It's not just Reshiram, there's Mewtwo and Mew and a bunch of others as well. So that's 2 players now that we've pushed through the winners bracket, 2 players we've pushed down to the losers bracket. We've got 1 more winners bracket game we need to show you for the moment. So let's head on over to the bracket and see our 3rd game, which is going to be between Kevin Kruger and Tord Reklev. And I've heard rumors that Tord's a pretty good player.
Yeah, I've heard of him once or twice. He obviously made it here to the global finals using that Excadrill secretly attacking build that was really mostly a control deck. Kevin made it here playing his Decidueye build. Both of them have made a switch up, and they think that it's going to be Tord using the Rapid Strike with Chinchino to make do. Very different to the list that we've seen so far on stream that's been trying to use the Stellar Wish over and over again. And Kevin is going to be bringing a Victini VMAX Archetype.
Absolutely.
Charizard
and Cramorant. There are some other tricks that we see, but it is a predominantly Victini
奇诺利鼠连击熊，我觉得
for the 3rd game in a row, we've got
这个台湾环境应该可以参考啊。
some kind of fire build. And again, we've got 2 really good players.
我快不行了，我要睡着了。
Some League Cup wins, not to be outdone. Tord has actually got some really good accomplishments there. 3 international championship wins, a world semi-finalist in 2019. We have got 2 phenomenal players that came through with weird decks, switched to more standard decks. So let's head on over to the game and see how this one's going to go.
Looks like we're going to be following Kevin's side of things, who is playing that Victini VMAX variant. He's got some spice in here as well to be aware of. He does play 1 copy of Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star, which is pretty awkward for the Urshifu players, so something that you may see coming in at some point during the game. He's actually started it in his opening hand, which is not really the best place for it, but it's a card that you could be seeing throughout the series. Other than that, yeah, it's a thick Victini. He has 1 Mewtwo, 1 Reshiram and Charizard, 1 Heatran, so the sort of mini package going on. And then just that high welder count, the high 4 count of boss's orders. So trying to lean into these supporters as much as possible, as well as a couple of Pokegears to pick them out.
Yeah, that's a nice way to go about doing it.
我这边是速销王视角。
We've got another Victini deck here, and this one does really seem to be leaning into Victini like we saw before. Tord, for his part, he started with that Mimikyu. Now that Mimikyu is actually a really nice one, because it turns off the abilities of damage Pokemon with, well, the damage GXs, which means that if a Mewtwo and Mew takes any damage, that Mimikyu will actually stop it being able to copy any attacks, which is not really where you want to be going here. So it's a nice little tech. Kevin, it's not the best turn 1 we've ever seen.
Here's the thing about Victini though, Attach Pass is actually still super
他
scary.
们之前带的牌型也差太多了吧，改来改去。
You need so little because you just know that there's still the reach that they have the following turn. Kevin debating the Wondrous Labyrinth.
看这个腰场先下理由是什么？不要被打30。
You know, he may be forcing himself into a welder next turn, rather than, you know, a crazy top deck of a VMAX, allowing him to boss his orders up towards.
敢被打这30滴会怎样吗？
If it comes into play, so I think here he's just saying, my hand's not the greatest, and I'm relying on this draw 3 next turn, or of course for Tord to replace the stadium.
Absolutely, yeah, that stadium. Can be kind of annoying for a player.
Yeah, Tord plays no counter stadium either, so this is just here for now.
Fair enough. I mean, if you're going to be fitting a free Chinchino line into every deck you make, sooner or later you've got to start cutting some cards somewhere.
Tord kicks off with a communication here, and he is going to have a look through his deck. One thing we know of Tord and many of the players who have made it to the top 16 is that a good rule of thumb is know what's in the prize cards, because then you can react accordingly. You don't get caught short at any point in the game, so making sure you're methodical going through, don't get caught up in the moment, and just making sure you know your outs is always going to be important. But one thing that's really different from Tord's 60 compared to a lot of these other Urshifus that we've already profiled today is that it's only playing, you know, that 3-3 Minchino counts. It plays 1 Dedenne GX, 1 Snorlax as well. for early game draw. So it's built that little bit differently from most of the others that we've seen so far today. So the draw engine is a little bit different.
It is, but we know that Tord, his MO as a player is testing. Tord tests an almost ridiculous amount, every deck he can think of. This is not some list that Tord will have just thrown together thinking, Cinccino's usually pretty good. Tord will have tested over and over with this deck, with the Cinccino list. And it's weird to see everyone else going down the Jirachi route and Tord going for Cinccino, but I think there comes a point, when you've won 3 international championships and made top 4 at Worlds, maybe we have to start going, you know what, I think Tord might be right about this.
And we have another communication. In goes a Cinccino. So Tord actually does play like one Jirachi just to scoop up net bounce when he wants to. So he still gets the one dig out of it when he wants, which is hilarious to see. Everyone else is going like 3 or 4 copies, and Tord's saying, I'll just bounce the one with scoop up nets instead.
Be fine.
Yeah, Tord playing around with his Pokemon right now. He's already got an Urshifu V in hand. He's going to go for that Snorlax for the early Gorman dies. It's actually Pokemon. We're going to see the capture energy come down as well turn 1 for Tord. He does play 4 copies, so he could be establishing a backup Urshifu if he's worried about Kevin going for Boss's Orders plays. But actually, no, there's a Wondrous Labyrinth, so you're not afraid of Boss at this point. You can just go for a Minccino fairly safely here, I think.
I like this a lot. I love Snorlax. I mean, Snorlax has always been one of my favorite Pokemon. It's just a giant cuddly bear. How could you not love it? But this particular Snorlax is great. It's very much like the old stadium card Tropical Beast, but as an ability, draw 2, you got 7 cards in your hand, end your turn. It's great draw, and it's built for turns like this. Tord needs a turn or 2 to get rolling, doesn't really have much on board. So what we see is just Snorlax, Gorman dies 2, you got 7 cards in your hand, and then could potentially use it for another turn or 2, or force Kevin to go through it. And this is, it's nice.
要手填先机球老大东东鼠吗？没这么贪呢。
But still, it's a great option turn 1.
And Kevin is kicking
他如果刚刚有这样子做的话，
because he topped it to quick ball, which obviously he wouldn't have known, but he could have made a really aggressive
蛮有
line
可
where
能
he
会
could have gone for boss, quick ball to Dene, look for a KO on the Urshifu. Now you have no real easy path at all. Any attack with the V or the VMAX is not going to be doing much to Snorlax at all. 130 hit points is just an annoying number for Kevin's deck right now. So the Welder for 1, you may be discarding some of these excess fire energies and going for a Spreading Flames play. Or if Kevin wants to limit his bench, he could just leave a Victini VMAX as his only Pokemon in play here and just swing for 100 damage.
He could, that would work.
看要这样子一张一张想的哦，会不会太牛逼啊？怎么想都觉得应该是要拿比克廷出来啊。
He would just be able to boss his orders and take the KO straight away. We know he's got the Pokemon communication. He's playing it right now. That gets the VMAX, boss his orders, get the KO. Of course, had that happened, Tord, if that was an option, we're sure Tord would have used capture energy to get another Urshifu, but then that would have slowed him down because there wouldn't be a potential Cinccino next turn. So,
yeah. Big decisions from the out, changing the course of the game already, really. And Kevin does have the option to...
版本真高哎，全高配耶。
His own Wondrous Labyrinth is stopping a Steaming Stomp from a Heatran play here, so he may just be limited to max victory for 3 energies here.
Not what you want, it's an extra energy. It doesn't get a KO. It's not good against bigger single prize Pokemon. It's great against Pokemon.
打这100有什么意义吗？
Those Jirachis, your Galarians, Zigzagoons, but Snorlax is pretty beefy. So yeah, this is not the turn that Kevin particularly wanted, so it's not ideal. I mean, if you're gonna hit the Snorlax, you really want a KO here.
Yeah, and you don't play any, well, Kevin doesn't play anything like Zigzagoon Scoop Up Net to try and make this number work for him. He's just kind of leaving it out there, taking a swing onto the Snorlax, maybe force Tord to have switch outs to even respond here, but Tord's hand size is large. He plays 3 copies of Bird Keeper, 3 Air Balloon as well, so he has lots of movement for Scoop Up Net. So we already see Tord get the VMAX.
阿聪一起床尿尿，看到这个打那么慢，不会想睡觉。看打超慢，受不了。这个我早就去叫裁判了。
Yeah.
他刚才那边为什么不会想要摊一个老大？
Double energies are pretty good. And double energies have always been good. We've seen them over and over. We've got twin energy and triple acceleration.
啊，不过他故意要扛啊，他故意要扛，还要把步场不要掉，白痴。
This is going to really help. It means that that one energy attack is paid for double energy, goes around Wondrous Labyrinth, and then see, you hit like 150 onto the Victini, putting it on a real clock before it goes down, and Kevin still is.
对面还有防速消芙蓉。
There just isn't very much in Kevin's hands.
Tord going for an aggressive Dedenne GX here tells us that he doesn't have any switch outs in hand whatsoever.
哇，这一百打了哎！
It's going straight in. So Tord's still just wanting to draw the maximum amount of cards here. He's going to communicate that Snorlax and turn it into possibly an Urshifu V.
奇诺利鼠。
If he just wants to get even more depth into his deck. One thing that's really good.
他带奇诺利鼠是觉得不会被印章控手牌是吗？
Urshifu and you can set up a Cheryl to be in your hand next turn. You can wipe out a lot of Kevin's damage output.
Yeah, Cheryl completely heals all your evolved Pokemon at the cost of losing the energy on any Pokemon you healed. So for VMAXs, especially ones like Urshifu, which remember when you use the big attack, you lose all the energy.
看完这两个打完，我也要睡了。
Wonderful, Cheryl.
看我明天还要超早起来，受不了。
Potentially, and Tord really. I mean, if you look at the board here, Tord certainly seems to be having the flashier turns, but putting himself in a really good position in this game.
但是滑上来打150，对比克廷来讲也好痛啊。
Because even if Kevin does go chasing it, you've still got your VMAX with the 2 Rapid Strike energies on, so you almost submit to Kevin having a Boss's Orders play. You don't mind it at all. We are going to see a bird keep here. That means Tord either has Scoop Up Net or more Air Balloon in his hand right now, just to get those additional cards. Like we said, it feels very much like he's pushing towards Cheryl right now, just trying to grow that hand size as much as possible so he has the options for next turn.
He does. I mean, if you're Kevin, you've got to be thinking about taking out the V, because you know Tord plays Cheryl. We keep mentioning it. We are in an open deck with this tournament here, and until that Cheryl gets played or hits a discard pile, you have got to be really thinking about
再一次奇诺利
it.
鼠，
Tord's popping a Chinchino
绿牌绿爆了啊！
Just another Minchino? It is. So just setting up that. I mean,
干这套台版环境可以抄哎，没有基拉奇的奇诺利鼠走。
Yep, and Tord is going to simply free retreat with that Air Balloon, get that Gale Thrust in. He has filled up his board, so he'll have to find Scoop Up Net to then pick up his Zigzagoon to be able to 2-hit KO this Victini, but still very decent turn.
但我觉得开始下这个腰场没有意义哎，是我的幻觉吗？我就觉得下这个腰场没什么意义。
To allow Kevin to draw some more cards here, because you cannot leave this one Victini in play. It's not enough anymore.
No, you need to have something else. So we do see the Crobat here. It's going to be coming down. Of course, if you've got an empty hand, Crobat and Dedenne are essentially the same.
下这个腰场没什么
So
意
this is
义
just
啊。
getting you a new hand of 6 cards. Of course, Dedenne is on the board potentially as well. You can only play one of each of them using the abilities each turn, but you can play one of each. So there's definitely potential here for a bunch of cards being drawn by Kevin, but he needs to start, you know, thinking about how, I'm sure he is, thinking about how he's going to be mapping out these prizes, because, I mean, you take out this Urshifu V, and that's lovely, but are you then going to start going after things like the Dedenne? Are you going to be trying to 2-hit KO the V Max? That Victini in the active isn't going to last forever, and it's giving up free prizes, so it's a slightly precarious position here.
Yeah, I think for Kevin, it's take the prizes as they sit. There's going to be this Urshifu he can knock out. Potentially the Dedenne can be Cramoranted. And you really want to hit the VMAX with like a Marnie or a Stamp, because you can't allow Tord to have the large hand size, so it's too likely that there'll be a Cheryl. So you really only want to hit the VMAX when you're lowering that hand size.
无汤他养下一只舒舒服服。
Submit some prize cards. Hope the next Victini VMAX can really put in a bit of a shift for the other turns, and that he can combine it with a reset stamp.
I think that's got to be the way to go. It's certainly absolutely winnable for both players. I mean, we've seen this matchup. It was quite a tightly contested 2-1 series. We could very well be seeing that again. The thing is, and it's one of the things that Chinchino does so well above Jirachi, reset stamp becomes way less good when it's not a reset stamp to 1, it's actually a reset stamp to 6, because you're going to draw for your turn and have 2 Chinchino. And then, if you're drawing 6 cards, you're probably hitting a supporter card or something along those lines. So, I'm not saying Tord's deck is, you know, completely reset stamp proof, but I am saying it is a darn sight less scared of it than the vast majority of decks out there.
干打得完啊，又不是有人打控制。
First make do is to get rid of a bird keeper. He wants to grow his hand as much as possible. So seeing that not get established is kind of scary for Kevin. We do see a capture energy come down for Tord as well. It's going to be a Zigzagoon just so that he can scoop up net it back up.
啥会捕获能量捕获蛇英雄
damage counter onto the VMAX now. He's got the KO and he's combining it with a Marnie rather than the bird keep here.
I mean, we talk a lot when we watch Tord on the stream. We talk a lot about how good a player he
那
is,
滑上来是不是也要爆炸啦？
how meticulous he is, and how good his decks are. But oh my goodness, capture energy for a Galarian Zigzagoon, so you can scoop.
看下面满堆火，满手火能诶。
The KO on Victini VMAX. That was a phenomenal play, and Tord is just in a great position. And because Kevin took out the Urshifu V last turn, Tord has now got a completely undamaged Urshifu V Max with free energy on. Things are looking pretty good. Oh, that is not a good hand from Kevin.
My God！ 下面爆开，马完直接变喜憨儿。 干这个下面的那个熔炉都没有拿起来滤过火能，他拿起来长这样子，不意外啊，真的不意外。
That's as good as it's going to get for you, and then you just hope that the top deck gets you out. You may even use the giant half just to filter some.
干这个腰场压死啦！
I think you just have to play the cards here now. You have to stamp now. I think.
Yeah.
It's too likely that Tord can Cheryl otherwise. It's just too likely.
这个也印了也没什么用哎，对面两只奇诺利鼠在看哎。虽然说是一组啦，啊这个印下去马上就变。 抽一抽变成5张手牌了，感觉不行了。要直接打了吗？先绿火能，先绿火能。
You're basically losing to Cheryl, so you can't wait on the stamp.
但也不对啊，其实火能也没有升很多啊。
Pretty greedy to hold on it. Kevin's really taking his time on it though.
刚刚里面3颗，抽起来3颗，刚才牌库有6颗。 牌库有6颗，码起来会不会长得满手火能？也是运气的。
I say every time, but maybe not every time. Kevin's going into the tank to think about it. Wow, trying to get more value gives Tord just way too many cards, I think, to find the Cheryl here.
Yeah, and he's still got the Chinchino for 2, and then
18要被老大啦。
There's a level ball.
18要被老大，然后直接120啊！ 走远啦！
Which level ball is one of the new cards that was actually reprinted in Battle Stars. We've seen it before. It's huge for things like Chinchino, just being able to search them out so much more easily, not having to rely on a quick ball or things of that nature, not having to use Pokemon communication. So I love this. And of course, quick ball can get evolutions if they're small enough. Tord, there's a lot going on. Is actually grabbing a Snorlax here. Might just be Chinchino fodder.
Yeah, it's probably fodder at this point. Tord's going low, so he can try and find that Cheryl switch combo really this turn.
老大来了吗
？Is what he's looking for because he can just air balloon out, and then switch or scoop up net, I should say. That's what Tord's digging for. Still has potential Stellar-wish as well. If he has double scoop up net in hand, he could scoop up net.
干透着说实在也是抖抖的呢。他那个是唯一一个打手哎，死了也是头很痛哎。哦，回收网。对啊，我想说干都不用养新的打手。哇，这样舒舒服服。
You won. When you don't play the reset stamp, you're hoping Tord whiffs a Cheryl so that you can play the reset stamp later on in the game where it's going to be a little bit more impactful. It was a huge risk, as you pointed out. Seems like it's paying off here. And for Kevin's point of view, all he needs to do here is just get the V max, and that will be enough for a KO.
Yep, so we're just going to see the Gale Thrust for 150 again from Tord.
Wow!
Kevin gets the welder. We're in business. We can draw some cards here at the very least.
Wow!
Kevin also plays Heat Trap.
Wow!
So any energies even on.
他怎么搞演一演又变成可以打了
？And yeah, actually the GX attack here would would be enough for energy.
阿昌不用摊手牌，人家都有得打。
Or he crams in the discard pile, I should say. So not quite as good, but yeah. So it's going into the active. That means you can take the KO now. You're up to 330 with this extra welder attachment.
干这个要硬吗？硬的。
Cramorant. Now the stamp could be coming in with a KO alongside it. See, the stamp doesn't even feel that good this turn now because you're not afraid of anything. It's really strange timing of the reset stamp.
I think you are still potentially afraid of a Rapid Strike Energy VMAX Lysander or Boss of Orders Lysander play.
That's true.
And that actually would end the game. That'd be a double KO. So no, I
啊
really
鸟诶嘞，不会要赢的啵，应该不会啵。
GMAX overflow, I think it's called.
升
That's what we're looking for.
滑上来30滴，一个回收，
All we need
一个
is a
10滴，
Rapid
升
Strike
10滴
Energy
出来就好了。
VMAX Boss's Orders, and that would be the game. And there is double Chinchino
有
on
连
the
技
board,
能，有进化，
so that could work.
还有手英雄啊。
Does also allow him to access Jirachi if he needs to Stellarwish as well. Still has a few scoop up nets, I believe, in his deck remaining. So
应该不可能带2只手英雄
it
吧
could？ just be any sort of fodder card for make do at the same time. Because as you say, he is going to make a push here.
He is. I don't think so. No, Zigzag. Kevin's checking like we are. Like, is that in Zigzag?
不用超梦龙接攻了啊！对面他妈古月鸟他妈随便射一次就死啦！
4 headbutt tantrums, which is quite a lot.
还是他要叫梦幻上来了。
Anything together here. Even if he's not pushing for win, he could Zigzagoon strafe KO into something bulky. And he could stamp as well.
但我们以为下面要爆炸了，殊不知人家又能打了。
To disrupt Kevin, so even if there's no win from 12 this turn, he's still got many defensive tools he can use.
Well, I mean, essentially, Kevin would just need Welder Energy, and then Cramorant would take the KO with Spit Shot. There's no Mew down at the moment, and he's only got 1 prize remaining, so doesn't even really matter what Tord strafes into in that situation. Kevin would just be essentially a welder away from winning the game. So, oh, there is a Rapid Strike Energy.
Uh-oh.
不是啊，古月鸟随便射一只就结束了。古月鸟这回合死不了吧？这在200滴看到这么死。
So many options for Tord. I feel like the stamp's the thing that you want the most, though.
You do. I think you've either got to take the KO on.
哦，梦幻上来了。
So 100 furious blows it's going to be, I think.
Yeah, I don't mind this play.
该不会真的是要超梦？超梦龙接攻 ！Oh my god， 这样子也可以赢哦！干，你娘嘞！我等下做梦会梦到他妈这些神仙在打架啊
！No, you can Elder Goss for Welder. I don't think there's enough energy.
干，对面还防3奖 ！Oh my god！
Giant half for full value though, so I don't think you can burst a Mewtwo onto the scene.
哎，对面还防奖励卡哎，牛的一匹耶！他妈的！
He's only got 1 prize remaining, but what's he even attacking?
怎么一个比一个还牛啊
There's a 60 HP Mew on the bench.
Okay, that's not a helpful.
哇，下面这个要拿奖励也痛苦了。
How many energies are remaining in this deck of his? I think he's halved out almost all of these energies because he's been kind of.
哦，不对啊，超梦直接打掉就直接结束啦。不是龙接攻吗？啊，少个火能哦。龙炉没有火能的啦。
So he needs to find Fire Crystal to be able to launch any attack whatsoever here.
Yeah.
龙炉没火能了。
But he need Fire Crystal before the Welder.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have Fire Crystal.
You can Elder Goss. No, you can't get there with any attack, right?
Don't think you can. So I think is he just going to go for Victini to accelerate a bunch of
Switch 直接填能吗
？A spreading flames turn possibly, by the looks of things.
I think that is legitimately your best option here. If he's got no energy in the deck, he would need Fire Crystal before he played Welder. Now, if he had free energy in a Welder, that would be game. But it's not possible, not without having the Fire Crystal already in hand. Now, there is the Mew. This is pretty big to stop. No, actually doesn't.
I don't think.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's possibly just playing around reset stamp of Tord's side again here.
Yeah.
You can go for this spreading flame.
神仙打架，神仙打架。干两边细节好多哦，受不了哎，完全受不了哎。
Tor's got boss's orders. This is all completely
老大
irrelevant. And he does have a 6-card hand. He's got 2 Chinchino
老大换我结束，干对面2个奇诺利鼠在抽很难没有吧
orders onto Crobat, you. Yeah.
？Goodbye。
Yeah, exactly. Throw out for the weakness stats, of course. Yeah, so a nice close there from Tord. I mean, he didn't, he was drawing a lot of cards, but he didn't actually piece together everything every single time. He was drawing so much and just didn't find the reset stamp when he needed, didn't find the Cheryl when he needed, but still was able to claw enough resources to get over the line against Kevin there. So, yeah, a surprising sort of game. Things didn't really go methodically. Kevin had that awkward mid-game after trying to be quite conservative in the opening to deny
第一场有
Rapid Flow from really taking over the board and deny towards some value.
干，我刚才也这样想哎，我刚才也这样想，他是不是赌什么都要奇诺利鼠啊？
Just not quite enough. Tord was able to finally get to the bottom end of his deck and find those last pieces to win.
Absolutely, and Kevin came really close. If there was just a couple more energy in his deck, or if he had a
干，真的那龙接弓真的全场 MVP 耶！阿昌你在酸他倒地了，准备摊手牌的时候，他就凑出龙接弓给你看，我有龙接弓。这样。
I don't feel this is a particularly one-sided matchup one way or the other. I don't think it's like the last
他这个奇诺利鼠走的
Kevin can win
的连击熊有搞头哎。
Tord's got a deck that can do weird, tricksy things, and Tord is a very, very good player. So it is, already.
干，为什么他们2个还没打就先喷了？
Tord's a favorite to carry on in this particular matchup.
The good news is Kevin is going first. He does have early access to his Victini V. He's going to start out with the Volcanion, which is far from ideal. But yeah, he can have a decent turn one.
干，真的猜不到下。
Crobat dig next turn.
牛逼呀，牛逼呀！妈，龙接弓牛的一批呀。
Again, probably lost on to Victini V, but this time his hand can take him further than the last game.
干，我想要抄那套奇诺利鼠的那个。
Yeah, I love this, and it just comes down to when you go first. You are
好像真的蛮猛的耶，不知道小千面走跟奇诺利鼠走哪一个比较强啊？还是觉得小千面走好像也是一样意思。这个对面那个配雪场强到不行哎。
They end up using their VMAXs, because when they VMAX, it turns into a 2-hit KO, and that is not the same situation.
刚才对面有工具怪吗？我没什么印象哎。
You want the Victini to be really getting in first, taking away like energy attachments and stuff on top. Wow, we're actually going to see Kevin go for the switch early here, so he's going to be crobating first, possibly just holding or just getting rid of everything. Gets the welder for next turn. He may forego it, knowing that he actually wants the boss's orders instead. So he may have just been burning his poker gear, having a little think about it.
I like it.
It's not obvious. Yeah, it's not obvious.
这个齿轮为什么要先发？
Still boss on two.
It is, but it's opening up options. It means, I love going for potential boss play next turn. Oh, we did actually just see it being discarded.
Yeah,
Why?
Boss by the looks of things, an extra discard and leaving.
他是因为等一下下一回合要比克提尼老大嘛，在存比克提尼老大的那个。
Shuffling it back into the deck, you've got kind of more.
是吗？是这样子吗？
When you need it, so I don't mind this. You've established a decent hand size. You're not threatening.
等一下是不是要把手牌打干
Tord's not to know that, so he may have to play accordingly here and get double Urshifu down.
And that is one of the awesome things about this kind of start, about a Pokemon like
龙炉哪一颗火呢？
Basically force your opponent to play
龙炉
suboptimally.
火结晶，然后火能都不拿，手甜。
little bit ago where, just a big turn 1 plus air and escape rope really almost ended that game on turn 1.
然后下腰场，然后炸场。
far better at doing that than someone like a Reshiram and
要那么智障吗？然后比克提尼上去，然后抽3张。
It's just a nice little draw engine throughout the game.
但对面还是有加起，为什么觉得他什么都有啊？
Board's going to go ahead and level ball actually for Jirachi. Now a Bird Keeper for 3 cards and then a Stellar Wish. He only plays 1 copy of Jirachi. It allows you to have those extra deep digs, and when you already are playing so many scoop up nets, it certainly is valid. Tord now going to go ahead and play another level ball, possibly for just another Minchino here. And like we say, he's digging towards those quick balls with this Stellar Wish. and he's looking to try and find Urshifu's, maybe even end on a Snorlax again. His hand size is kind of big right now, but if he can use things like communication to lower it and maybe turn attach, he could still be looking to Gormandize, because it is a tanky one prizer that he can use against Kevin and force boss's orders.
And that did work very, very well in the previous game. And once again, we see Tord building up his hand size there. He's really trying to get as many options as he can. It's the way he builds his deck, it's the way he plays. It means that when we get down to the late game, you know, we had all that drama in game one, and yeah, he had the boss. Didn't have those combo pieces throughout the game with the Cheryl, but, oh, having said that, it looks, oh no.
He's got the
I thought that was
right now. Yeah, I think that's just Kevin's side, just saying, telling us what status conditions are.
刚那个透了手牌这么多
They
没
get a
东西啊。
special, account to play on PTCGO, so they have to just go through the rigmarole of ticking boxes again, letting us know what status conditions are. These guys know perfectly well what status conditions do in this game. They know pretty much everything about this game.
For a minute there, I thought Tord was passing a turn without an Urshifu down, which with his hand size would have been suboptimal.
刚才这个对面都要打到钉钉，是不是啊？有够久的啦。
He's got a Minchino with a air balloon. There's not. It's taken him a while to really.
我已经想睡觉了，拜托不要打这
He's
么
got
慢
the
好
quick
不好
ball, which I'm sure he's happy with. That's at least an Urshi. He can go ahead and Stellar Wish again. The only thing that's awkward this time about leaving a Jirachi out is that it's an easy prize for Kevin. No matter what happens, you can just
刚那个
attach
对面那个
and
那个，
take
如果
a
是他的画面
easy
都已经
one
钉
prize.
钉钉
You'd
钉，不
much
知道
prefer
钉
it to be
钉
a
几次了，
Snorlax,
钉
but
钉。
Tord may be thinking about turning it into
我要叫裁判的啦，钉
something else.
钉。啊，怎么是先击球丢豆呢？手上牌这么
I
好
want to see him get a Snorlax. I think that'd be an excellent plan. We see the Urshifu coming out, so at least there's going to be
看
that.
下面这个，等一下一定是全力拼
Yeah, that's a really nice
手田
play.
进
It
化
could
老
either be
大。
back up Urshi if you're scared of boss, or it could be a big reload with Snorlax and take that hedge. Really depends on how strong his hand is.
I love the Snorlax play. Well, should he quick ball for Urshifu or Snorlax? And Tord's like, why not both?
Yeah, exactly. This capture energy, we've seen him use it in his control archetype, and as we see,
哦
Tord is，
这样子还
safeguarding
没搞头
around,
咯。
just getting done in really by an early aggressive boss from Kevin. Kevin plays 4 boss's orders and 2 Pokegears, so you always have to be playing around that. It's not difficult. It's always in range of Kevin in theory.
Absolutely. And Kevin with that Victini V Max, if he
Oh,
can just keep taking out the
absolutely.
only Urshifu every turn, that is going to lead to a very short, unfulfilling game for Tord. So does get those 2 Urshifu down, does have the double Minchino as well, and got the energy, pretty much everything you could want from turn 1. For Kevin's side, he gets the Victini V Max, he's got the second energy on there, and now
有绿牌
is he
上
gonna
来
dig
了，
to
东
try and
东
get
鼠
that。boss's orders? It looks like he's eyeing up a Dedenne
大概几
here,
张
so certainly looks like it
3
might be
张
a
老大
boss's orders turn if he can find his way towards it.
Yeah, boss's orders is good. A backup Victini V would also be really nice for him. Or trying to get to work on a Mewtwo as well.
龙
These
如
are
不
all
先
things we
压
want to go for here. He is going to have to get rid of his one.
哇哦，
You
什
do
么
see
都
boss's
有，
orders come
什
in,
么都
and
不
a
奇
snap
怪
hit from Kevin.
什么
That's
都
what he
有
was aiming，
什么
for.
都不奇
He can
怪
max，
什么
victory
都不
now
奇
for
怪
an easy
奇
2
怪
prize
不奇
swing.
怪。
I like this. And if Tord doesn't V Max next turn, Kevin can do it again. He actually drew double boss's orders, so I like this a lot.
人家要
Okay,
拼什么
fine,
就
Tord's
什么，
probably
对
gonna
面
have
为
the
什
V
么要三
Max,
小？
but it means if he doesn't, Kevin is going to take just a huge lead in this game. Or if Tord just benches another Urshifu V, so he's got a
我
backup.
跟你讲，人家看起来以为下面要赢的，结果上面又会，等下上面又会打回来。
Tord's going to have to make some decisions as to whether he wants to actually bench a backup Urshifu or just go forward with 1 for the moment. This is what Victini does.
Yeah, exactly. And if you are putting down another easy 2 prizer, then your board is basically locked the entire remainder of the game, just allowing Kevin to
他怎么
force
加血
once
不
more
看
or
一
even
下？
use Cramorant once again. So Tord probably going to try and keep it tight, trying to... Looks like an Urshifu is being thrown in here for some other options. We'll see how he wants to play this. I'd be surprised if we're not going to see the VMAX come in and swing, but maybe his hand size is low enough that he needs to Dede change this board instead.
Could be an option, absolutely. I mean, Crobat and Dedenne, they're the
他
cards
到底
in
老大
pretty
彩
much
老大
every
彩的
single
那个
deck,
就
but
真
they're
的
for
是
a
很晒
reason.
哦！
They
我跟
are
你讲
for-，and it's not
这
just that
就
they
这个游戏就是要晒度。看那个他的对面刚才那个印章起来，永远都能动，不是很晒，不然是什么？
But it's a fact that you can quick ball for that draw, which is so huge. Or you can Pokemon communication for
手上有
that
绿牌
draw, and it turns, you know, a quick ball into a new hand of 6 cards before you've even played your supporter. So they are just such phenomenal cards. And I know seasoned veterans watching this will be like, yes, we know this, but for newer players, you're going to see this in every deck, and there is a pretty gosh darn good reason for it.
哦，对面还是有工具怪
Todd's got the rapid and
看他们那个
the
真的是
karate
绿好
belt.
绿满哎。
So the GBAT's rapid flow is open for him if he would like to. He could go for potential boss's orders plays and deal with.
哇，他这个黑带下去是不是可以直接120爽穿了？
That's an easy path for him. He's got the fresh.
啊，等一下又进5奖，啊进5奖之后又把东东鼠拖出来。
And once again establish that large hand size.
Yeah, a boss's orders here would be absolutely huge, and once again,
他
there's
们都
no
不需要什么太
Mew on
复
the
杂的
bench.
加攻
And
击手
when
段
there's。no Mew on the bench, things get very, very bad very, very quickly. Kevin does play Mew in his list, but
抽好，抽满，
I didn't
抽起来，
look when
抽
he
抽
was
抽。
searching through his deck. I don't know whether it's prized or he just hasn't got round to it yet, but if you don't get round to getting your Mew out, these are the kind of turns you open yourself up to, and it really is a key interaction when you're playing against these Rapid Strike Urshifu decks. It's not enough to have it in your deck. You've actually got to get it on the board quickly, even when you'd rather have other Pokemon
敢
instead.
拿个奇诺利鼠到那么久，你快一点，我要睡觉了，干你娘嘞！
Excusable. It's given him some really good opening.
啊，就拿奇诺利鼠，他妈看半天。
Potentially here.
快点，我明天要家教，你们快打快
Even if he
点！
does just end on like a bird keep play and draw cards instead.
丢了
it's
丢了，
easy
哪
for
次不
us
丢？
to hit KO through this Victini if he has access to Zigzagoon over the next 2 turns.
And this is one of the awkward things about when you're playing. Oh, we had
哦，
boss's
丢了
orders.
他，
Actually,
难怪要
rid
想
of
这么
it
久
would。make do.
手上有
So
3
does he
张
have
更重要
another,
的。
or does he have another boss's orders, or does he have another plan in mind?
Yeah, possibly a different plan because he only plays 2 copies of the boss's orders. He plays Mewtwo and Scoop Up next to try and recover them, but it may not be part of his plan this turn.
So just going after the Victini VMAX straight. It's hard to argue with that. That Victini VMAX is a nice free prize Pokemon, and Todd might be trying to go after the Victini now, going, look, I can boss his orders at Crobat and Volcanion later. They're not going anywhere. What I actually really want
干
to
这
do
个
now, I
超
want to get
超
rid of
多
the
连
threat.
击熊
I
的
can
欸，
take those easy
妈
free
打个铁人
prizes
仓，
another's turn.
我怎么觉得这个铁人仓没人带有点可惜
Kevin looks like he might be thinking the same thing as
超
us
多
there,
连击
like,
熊
hang on a second. That would have been bad, but
Ooh,
这样要
nice.
硬
Todd weaving，
看
in
这
a
下面这个手牌感觉
stamp
烂
as
透
well.
烂透嘞。
Down to 4 cards in the early stages. Basically, Todd saying you've only got 1 threat.
那结果
I can
结果
stamp
硬
you and you can't
火起
stamp
来了
another
是怎
one.
样？
That's an easy win for me.
yeah, it's a pretty good game plan, to be honest with you. Now, the good news is there is a giant half on the board, and Kevin has drawn into both a Reshiram and Charizard and a Welder. So we are going to be able to see at least 2 energy coming down on that Reshiram if that's where Kevin wants to go. So there is another potential Pokemon coming down here. But Todd knows that that Rapid Strike Urshifu is not being 1-hit KO'd. So he's got a little bit of time here, and if you've got 2 VMAXs that are 2-hit KOing each other,
干
you're
还
already in
想
torch
还想
position and take the
拎
first
你
hit.
啊嘞！
How about Mewtwo as a play? If Mewtwo's in the deck, this could be a huge turn for Kevin. Could be
Oh,
seeing
that
some
it
Cricketune
could.
value as well. Wow, this could be a monster turn. If it's available.
Absolutely. That would be cool. And we do see...
Oh, it's not here. Man, that is rough.
That is rough.
他要
And he
先
also
射
got rid
掉
of the
吗？
Reshiram and Charizard to go and grab it, which is a good idea.
Yeah.
Because Mewtwo and Mew copies GXs in your discard pile or on the field, so you discard it and then grab the Mewtwo. Did Kevin know that it was not there?
Yeah, I'm sure he must have known. He looked through
think
his
so.
prizes on the opening stages.
So it
Well,
looks like Cram...
Yeah, well,
worked.
Cram is the play by the looks of things. We're going to see the Giant Hearth. Probably just get rid of the VMAX at this stage. And then you weld to the Cram. You could still just be hitting into the active here. It's still the biggest threat for Todd, and his hand size is low, so you play around Cheryl fairly well this
先
way
射掉
round.
吗？
And you just go for spit shot into spit shot, basically, and just establish both to be fairly stamp proof. Certainly a reasonable play for him.
I like it a lot. And the other thing is, like we've said,
Yeah,
Cramorant does
先射掉，
have a
抗斗
resistance to
在
fighting.
前面。
Which means that you can spit shot the active if you want, or the Dane as he's going for, taking those 2 prizes, and you know you're not getting KO'd this turn. You're buying yourself a little
尽
bit
量
of
讲
time.
哎。
Problem now for Kevin is he's down to 2 prizes
啊，可是
remaining.
他没有打到
There's
那只
no
连击熊
easy
哎。
2 prize Pokemon on Todd's side of the field, and a kind of It's a weird one because if Tord benches any Pokemon V,
干，
you've
啊，
got
这
to think
下面再
Kevin's
被
winning
印一
the
次会
game.
不会爆开？
So Tord, well, he won't exactly, but that
好像
that
不会
kind of，
这
locks
两边
Tord into this
印章体
1v
光
max for
啊
the rest of the game now.
I think what Kevin's saying is because there's the karate belt attached, it's not easy for Tord to get in and out of the active and do a Gale Frost boss play on the Victini. Because Tord only relies on air balloons and bird keepers, so he can't bird keep boss.
如何拿6
So
奖
this？ forces Tord
让
to
我们来
use
思
the
考
Max
一下
Rapid Flow this turn,
如何拿6奖。
and it could require a boss's orders for that play as well.
老大
It
擦
could,
制服，
absolutely could. I mean, it would be free prize. It would be 2 KOs. It would be a nice one. It's just kind of turning into a kind of a strange game.
老大
Kevin's
擦
really
制
locking
服
down Tord's options
120
between the
120
Crobat and the Victini V Max, really saying to Tord, look,
给
there
水
are
火
only
神。
certain plays you can make here, but Tord's got the Chinchino, and he's already
干
got
不
his
行
V
这样
Max
子感觉要
established.
2 个
So
老
Kevin
大，啊
is
比克体
certainly
应该
making
不会
life
再上来
awkward
了
for。Tord. But maybe we'll see an attack, and then we'll see a Cheryl, and then we'll see
那个
Tord
比
keep
克体
building
你
it
也
up
是
from
再
there.
滑上来
With the
150，
Mewtwo, it
在
means
蛇
Tord
英雄
can
点
just
一下
go
就死了。
boss's orders onto Dedenne, take the 3 prize KO. He's actually going to make do before the Mewtwo. So again, not wanting to spend the Mewtwo just yet. I believe that's both make do's used now. So let's see what supporter he wants to use this turn.
And actually, it's important to note, Kevin didn't get the Mewtwo and Mew off the prize, and that's probably why he went for the Dedenne,
Sure.
to try and get that Mewtwo and Mew to take out the Urshifu, but he whiffed it. That Mewtwo and Mew is still in those final 2 prizes, so like you predicted, it does have to be the bigger attack
三小
this
就这样
turn, hitting 120 to the Crobat minus resistance, and then 120 to the bench, but without boss's orders,
Okay.
or indeed 2 bench Pokemon, that is not the best use
我
of it.
干，这是
I'm
啥意
surprised
思
by？that, to be honest. Tord could have set up a potential 2-turn win because he could have Mewtwo'd and then make dude and then dealt with Dedenne and Volk. Maybe he's just trying to keep
哦，
board
一奖一奖
locked,
拿
Kevin's
吗？
board locked, so he can't get destroyed by a Mewtwo here. That's probably why Tord's taking this line instead.
Yeah, I don't mind this at all. We know that Kevin whiffed the Mewtwo and Mew, but Tord does not know that.
Yeah, yeah.
And Tord knows it's prized at this stage. Yeah, he's seen the deck.
对面应该有梦幻吧？如果他这边没有打手之后，头也是挺痛的欸。
So it looks like we got a max victory here. Take out the Chinchino, limit Tord's options a little bit, put Kevin down to 1 prize, and I like this because and escape rope is huge because he's scared of Cheryl. We're all scared of Cheryl. Cheryl is terrifying. So by taking 2 single prizes,
下面如
you
果
take
没
away
打
that
手，
option of
对面
Cheryl,
有
and
梦
Tord is not
幻，
winning this turn. Tord can take 5 prizes,
Yeah.
but he can't take 6.
要怎
It's
么
gonna
搞？
be-
除
for
非
me,
对
if
面
Tord can have the ideal turn, it's
全部都
stamp
剩下
to
小
one
怪，啊没有
and
下大怪，啊
give
离
Gmax
动神
Rapid，Flow, take the 5, deal with the Cricketune.
那就
That
随便
also
打一
means
只
that
都
Kevin
死
has no，draw
就是
engine
古月
remaining,
鸟随便射一
and
只都
it
死。
means he has very few
啊，如果
options,
对面
no
有
engine
下一
left
只
in the
连击
field or
熊在
anything,
后
so
面
that's
防
what
离
Tord's
动神，
looking for. He's still got 16 cards remaining in his deck. The Stellar Wish is a big one here. Only 1 make do to help him get there. Needs to find Rapid Strike Energy, needs to find Reset Stamp. These are the big cards he needs, and a switching out, of course. I imagine there's already some rooting around in his deck. It's just if he can close here.
This would be big, reset stamp to 1, taking out the Victini, which is the attacker, taking out the Cricketune, and then, I mean, what does Kevin do at that stage? I suppose at that point,
Hot deck.
yeah, you need welder free
该
energy.
该
to
不会
Cramorant, so
什
Tord's
么
probably going to
什
be
么
trying to look for a
蛇
Mew
文
as
熊
well
点到
here
死吧？应该没这
to
种事吧？
Cramorant plays onto Chinchino.
There's the Rapid Strike. He's got the Scoop Up Net switch out.
但他只要
Does he
落后
have
好
the
爽
stamp
哦，
to
填一
boost?
个连击能量，然后就120、120、120、120、120这样，
Air balloon into a
爽穿欸
Chinchino and try again
印章吗？
with more scoop up nets, but not there for him. Tord's forced to just take the 5 prize.
该会不会
KO.
又再回收网啊
It's still a fantastic turn. But it is vulnerable. Tord is playing around.
Oh
Cram
my
right
god!
Love it. Absolutely love it.
What the fuck?
Because he needed a Mew. If he didn't have the Mew, then, and to be fair, Mew might not have been the best
what a-
idea
聊天
because it's
室
so weak.
What the
So,
fuck?
I think at this stage, yeah, UG Max Rapid Flow, and he knows the Mew.
What? 就
No, he doesn't know.
干我又没
But
话
he
讲了，
knows
我
Next
我
two
我
prizes. Yeah, exactly.
我
Yeah,
我
he
我真的
only
傻眼哎！
loses to Mew. Hey, he still doesn't have Mew to a Mew. Is it the last prize?
Yes. You hate to see it. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty rough. But yeah,
feel like I have not
干啊，这个
had a really interesting
哇塞！
option.
可是
Maybe
对下面有
Tor
印
had
章哎，
Stamp's prize
干这个
because
印
he
下去
could，have, instead of going this route,
对面没有
I
奇
think
诺利
his
鼠不用
a
动
more
嘞。
winning play is
我们来
to
猜印起来一张
try
是什么
one
好
more
了啦
finish the stamp. So possibly his stamps were just not accessible for him, or maybe he was thinking the 33% if potentially a stamp's prize wasn't good enough odds. And this way you play around the cram much better, and then you just hope that the prize is awkward for
刚才
Kevin, which in
这个
incidentally
教
it
一
is,
只
of course. The stamp is going to be big though.
Oh yeah, stamp to 1. That is so upsetting for Kevin. So
印
close.
起来一张
He could，
然
have
后博士，
Elvidost for
要不然
the
就是
welder.
印起来一张，
And
对，
then
印起来一张
he's
博
got-
士。
I think he's got the energy he needs, and then from there he could have just attacked with Mew to a Mew for the game.
哇干，这个被
But
印
Mew
手
to a Mew
印下去
being his
超
final
伤哎，
prize
对面连动都
really
不能
cost
动。
Kevin here. And I mean, does he have a better play than just using
刚我怎么
deep
觉得
dash
对
to
面
search
可以
the perfect 2 cards for next
再下一
turn?
只连击熊会比较好
Yeah, I
啊。
think he's going to try and just set up. Yeah, it looks like going for the Heatran here. Weld to Heatran and just hit with
龙接弓，
weld onto it and go for the steaming stomp.
等一下
both
再
into
等开
off turn,
局
the
场
following turn. That's the 2-turn path for him.
Yeah, I think it's got to be the way to go. It does
哇
hit the
干，
energy,
真的有
that is
火人舒
crucial.
服。
So he does get to play the escape rope, switches his Heatran in, attaches his energy. And oh, he did have a stadium, so he was going to hit the
Yeah.
energy anyway. Okay, so puts himself on a 2-turn clock. And to be fair, as much as a Mew to a Mew being gone is very, very sad, it doesn't look like Tor's got much going on here at
两
all.
张动不动得
He's
起
got a
来？
one-card hand, no draw on the board, no energy on the board, and is going to be KO'd and lose the game next turn. What
GG
it
了吗？
looked towards 2 cards in hand, it doesn't look like it's
GG
much. Tord concedes,
下一场
and Kevin, he's even it up at 1 game each. An improbable victory?
Yeah, that ended up really, really nicely for Kevin. Just the stamp at the right time. Tor did everything to not lose, basically, but then the stamp just means that he has nothing left. And because Tor has an
干，我在
unconventional
思
list
考
of 1 to den AGX, he doesn't have those same.
刚刚如果不
football
拿
actions
五
to
奖
like,
会比较好
here's
吗？
6 more cards, here's research for another like 7. His is more methodical, and when you don't have those Chinchinos around to get yourself out of those spots, you can feel, pretty weak and get punished by those reset stamps. I feel like towards last turn, it must have been down to stamps being
可是那个
prized,
龙
because
接
I think
攻起来
almost always you
哦
go
对
for
他
that
龙接攻起来还
scoop
可以
out and
看
try
龙
again
路
with the wish to hit the stamp, because if you're taking out Cricketoon and you're taking out their only attacker all in 1 turn, a stamp to 1 would have been the exact thing that Kevin
干对面，可是我觉得刚才刚刚如果下面那两只打手都死了，对面的奇诺利鼠没死还有机会。
You've got to think so.
是因为
And, you know,
Kevin
with
他
Tor
的
not having his resets
他没办法再
down,
下一
he's
只
not
连
having
击
his
熊
Mew to a Mew, we
因为我
actually
想不
both
到如果
play
再下一只
that.
连击熊，他要怎么
It
输
was-
哎？
I mean, I don't think
被离
either
动
of them
神
were
就叫
done
另外一只
particularly well by
叫
their
一只熊
prizes.
另外一只
So
熊
let's
上
head
去
on，over into game 3 then and see what the resolution is going to be.
就不会
I
输
like
啊
it when we end up at 1 game apiece in best of 3s. It makes things a little
这
bit
边我
more
真的觉得他有
exciting,
他把
and
全部都回收网
both
真的有
players
点奇
can
怪。
win this game. It's a very winnable game for either player, and as much as Tord looked like the favorite going in, we just saw Kevin win a game where
还是刚刚其实有另外一招是，他不要把那
until the
他
end,
直接
where they
滑
went
上去打
very
150。
great for him.
All right, it looks like Tord is going to be being able to
会不会比较好？
go first in this game 3, so he's not
被
quite
印章
as
至少还有3
vulnerable
张。
to the early aggressive bosses orders plays from Kevin. It does mean that he's vulnerable to the early welder plays from Kevin. Though.
刚刚那边真的是可以讨论的，
He's
因为
so good
不知道他的
going
手牌是
first and
怎样。
So we'll see how both players start out. Kevin's got a decent hand. He's got good push potential with his quick ball and his communication. Starts out with Victini, which isn't too shabby. We'll see how Tor can respond here.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, Tord starts with that Mimikyu again. There's that 2 game starting with a Mimikyu. And I'm fairly sure that's a one-off. We do see a level ball, though. That can get a Jirachi or a Minchino. Probably a
换成
Jirachi
连
if he's
击
got some
熊
kind of
先
switching
攻
option, get Stellar Wishing turn 1. So that's going to at least start him off here. And like we've seen with, with Victini and with Urshifu decks, it really is, can I get a Pokemon V and an energy turn 1? Because that's all you're really looking for.
Yeah, the same for both these sides, really. Just get that V down, threaten that V max. Both of them have huge power spikes. The Victini V has the potential to boss his orders and deal with anything trying to evolve up if it is a V. And the Urshifu has the potential to cherry pick multiple Pokemon for that G max rapid flow. So Tord kicks off with that level ball, gets the Minchino down. It could be even a play where you go ahead and capture energy the Minchino. He already has double Urshi, though. His hand is looking pretty solid by the looks of things.
Oh, no
Pass over to
energy.
Kevin here. Yeah, no energy is a little bit rough, but typically you go Gale Thrusting early anyway, so it's not the biggest loss for him, but it may be an indicator that he doesn't have any draw for next turn. So something to bear in mind.
Yeah, might want to go for research over Marnie, because Kevin does have both those options. First, he's got a few other things to do. He's got himself a Cricketune, which he's wondering to play or not. I think it's got to go down. It's too good at drawing throughout the game, and he's going to end up with weaker Pokemon on the bench anyway. We've seen this in both games, so I don't think it's a huge decision there. But
Yeah,
now
he can
Carry on.
he can already try and get some value out of it this turn. He can Calm and Quick Ball, and he can even net a couple cards if you leave the Cricketune active. I feel like you don't want to use either of these supporters realistically. You want to be hitting that Welder play, or you could go for a Research Flare Starter. That's another route for him, where you just set up double Victini V. That seems reasonable as well.
that could work. That could be nice. And that's the thing, Victini is so much less reliant on Welder than other decks. You know, if you can get a couple of manual attachments and a Flare Starter, you're not really going to be worried much throughout the game. It's not like those more traditional fire decks we've seen over the past couple years, where whiffing Welder really is huge. I mean, how many Welder decks used to play 4 copies of Boss's Orders? It wasn't a viable strategy because of how little you'd get to use them, but when you're not having to Welder turn after turn, you can boss his orders, and when Jirachi is so good at taking out those 2-prize Pokemon, you can see why it's so gosh darn popular.
And Kevin's prize Mewtwo again, just saying.
Oh, really?
Not again, Kevin, not in game 3. I'm pretty sure on the first search we may be seeing something different with the communication here, but he may just be going for Crobat instead. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not there. Yeah.
No, it's
dice.
not there.
No dice with the Mewtwo and
干
Mew
我被
once
困
again
起
for
啊啦，
Kevin.
泡高班的啦，较
Oh,
紧
you
的
play it,
啦
but this is a
，Oh
main
my
matchup he's got to
god！
be playing it for, other than other Mewtwo and Mew decks, but they have been largely surpassed by fire decks with Mewtwo and Mew, so it's so
他们是不是已经往后
annoying
想
to
4
have it
步啦
prized 2 games in a row.
是在下象
I
棋
mean, I'd
哦。
love to say, it can't be the last prize 2 games in a row, but it could.
Yeah, Kevin, just debating the communication. I actually do like having double Victini down. I think it makes the most sense. You can exciting stage for a couple cards. You get a couple awkward ones. You don't like getting rid of your Fire Crystal, but you're trying to have a deeper dig towards Fire Energy in the first place. You possibly could just discard an extra Victini here. Not sure what your least helpful card is in the deck right now. Kevin opting for the Heatran. Could even
Wow,
be
sai
coming
下
into
这么
play
多
here
只的
as a
吗？
hot burn GX option. And just the research. We do see the Fire Energy, so there will be a Flare Starter at the very least. Not much else going on in the hand at all. So fortunately, he can establish these energies for next turn with the Volcanion.
Yeah, I like this a lot. You got 1 Victini now ready to go, 1 Victini that's an energy away. And it means for the next couple of turns, unless you really want to go nuts with Heatran, you don't care about Welder. So we got 2 Boss's Orders there. We got 2 Pokemon communication and a reset stamp. We could see a couple of turns of Kevin just picking off Pokemon from Tord's bench, although it is going to really depend what happens on Tord's turn. And he's playing a Quick Ball, so may well be a Dedenne, unless he's already got something in hand. It is Dedenne.
Yep, here's the Dedenne GX, so he's going to have 6 fresh cards and then the Make Do on top. Looking for
干
double
个
VMAX
铁人
would be
仓
ideal.
可以惩
Get
罚
rid of
惩
a
罚
reset stamp
惩罚
and
那
the
个
shell
连
there,
击
I
熊
think,
惩
is a
罚
little
的
bit
蛮大的
awkward. But
好多
actually,
连击熊
supports in the discard pile isn't
连
that
续
bad
3场
at
都
all
有
because you can Mewtwo Make Do straight into it, so it's actually not that terrible. He is going to Make Do get rid of a Capture Energy. It's great on turn 1, but it's terrible in the mid game where it's not acting as a fighting energy. And that's exactly what Tor's looking for right now. If he can take a Gale Frost 1 prize, it's certainly helpful. We're going to see a Zigzagoon ping onto a Heatran here.
Gonna take a while to
先
get up
点这
there.
实力是啥意
Well,
思啊？
this just stops Heatran from yoinking energies, right? Because there's a Mimikyu
Oh,
in play.
He's got Mimikyu in play, of course he does. So we
Spicy.
finally see Mimikyu doing its thing, turning off the ability of that Heatran, because there's a damage counter on, so that's actually really quite big. If you're going to start Mimikyu, you might as well use it.
Interestingly, Tor chooses to attach before the Marnie here, so he doesn't want to attack at all by the looks of things this turn. He does find double VMAX. That's nice.
Wow,
against
wow,
Boss's
wow,
Orders
wow.
potentially. We are going to see the retreat into the Dedenne GX. Dedenne is ironically super tanky.
哇哦，一张
against
奖
the
励都不
Victini
送
V.
欸
Most
哇
other decks
啥
just
意
go
思啊？
for
怎么老大
it
又
and
上来
win
啦
those. Kevin, though, he does have Rope Boss, so he's got better options here for sure.
He
Can also
does.
draw cards with Cricketune. This is nice.
你娘嘞！啊手天啊老大，我手抽4张，啊刚才不是手上2张老大吗？啊马玩怎么手牌长这样啊？
Let's face it, he wanted to take just an easy couple of prizes, and that's just not an option anymore. So, has got a bunch of energy. He's going after Cinchino. I like this play. We got an exciting stage all the way to 4, and going to be taken out towards draw when Tord is sitting on a free card hand.
Yeah, this is very smart. I think every card was good to take a knockout there on, to be honest. The Zigzagoon stops a scoop up net 2 shots on the VMAX. The Mimikyu re-enables your Heatran.
先杀比克提就对了啦。
A good prize there. And Tord is forced to go back.
干，下面有超梦哎，他也是当
boss
吃素的哎，操！
Really is. Now, Kevin did get the Mewtwo and Mew off the prizes. Nice. Interesting. Had he taken the prizes in the way the majority of the players do, it would have been his last prize, but missed it up to find it. Oh, and it looks like we got boss's orders.
看下面手牌好尴尬，一堆工具怪。
And then just a Gorman die, so Tord has nothing going on and just takes a turn to, well, just refill.
Yeah, nicely identified by Kevin, seeing Tord on that low hand size, just one make do, take it away from him. So we may be seeing Mewtwo hit the board and then just a research looking for switch outs here, more than likely.
Potentially, the problem with playing Mewtwo and Mewtwo
early, of course,
is that now if Tord hits a scoop up net, he can ping it with Headbutt Tantrum just like he did with Heatran. And because there's no psychic energy in Kevin's deck, that Mewtwo if there's any damage on it. So you really want to try and time that Mewtwo and Mew so you play it well to smash. You don't really want to leave it sitting on the bench and use it in a turn or 2.
No, exactly, because now Tord has been Gormandizing up to a large hand size. Kevin once again does establish that Wondrous Labyrinth. That's in for the remainder of the game. But it does limit
刚才上一局透的那个最后那个回收网，我还是觉得不 OK。他其实可以下一只能躺的怪。 难弹的怪就可以放移动。
So we can get rid of it in future turns, but it is going to be there for as long as Kevin wants it there, basically. So forcing Tord to have a rapid strike energy just to do the 150 and turning off the potential Karate Belt rapid strike energy plays that we've seen Tord absolutely has been seeing how to do them.
Yeah, and Tord has the Karate Belt established, so it's already there for him. We only see an air balloon onto the other Urshifu VMAX. Tord looking for some scoop up nets / bird keepers for sure this turn to move the chunky Snorlax that's currently in the active. He wants to start getting to work with some Gale Thrusts. In a way, you kind of like this Heatran being in the active as well, because it forces Kevin to have those switch outs, and you don't know that he's missed them. So you might want to get in there, get some damage on the Heatran so you can snipe KO it later on.
Yeah, that is always a nice option. Now we see the Minchino coming down. And an air balloon, there's no pinging onto the Mewtwo and Mew here.
Tord needs the cards, I think. He's re-establishing Cinchino instead. He's going to take another turn Gormandizing by the looks of things.
He is, and of course, you cannot weld around boss's orders in the same turn, so Tord knows that those Urshifu are basically safe at this stage.
Oh my god! 现在到底是在打三小？
Yeah, another turn of Gormandize. I mean, this is not what Tord wants. This is not what his deck is built to do. It doesn't have 4 Snorlax in. This is not his primary game plan. It's just what he's got to do at this stage. And this is round 1. This is the worst time to fall into the loser's bracket. Essentially, the earlier you fall into loser's bracket, the more games you have to win to make it to grand finals. So this is, you know, the later you, if you're going to lose, the later you lose, the better. Round 1 loss, and Tord is not looking for, you know, something needs to start going better, is what I'm trying to say.
That said, Kevin doesn't have an easy way through the Snorlax. You know, it looks like it could be another turn that Tord's bought for free here.
叮叮叮叮，我要睡觉了，叮叮，打快点，拜托。
No attack that he can use right now to get through the Snorlax, and no way around it. So, yeah, it's a free turn unless this Cricketune has something to say about it, by the looks of things.
Yeah, that's not ideal. I mean, Cricketune, to be fair, can draw free cards here, it looks like. Because presumably this will be a VMAX, evolve up, 1 card in hand, Cricketune gets free. So there's still options going on here, but you're right. Kevin is not. There's nothing great going on his side of the board. He's got lots of Pokemon out, but nothing really working.
A couple nice supporters for him. Yeah, he can continue to chase down the Minchinos if he wants to.
哎，怎么又老大，又老大，老大，老大，
If
老
you think it's
大。
worthwhile as well, yeah, he's gonna go Mimikyu. I like this a lot.
Oh my
because you're setting
god.
yourself into a position where the Heatran can actually be usable again.
大
Basically
大，
freeing up a board space for you. This is really nice.
大大不知道要讲什么了，感
Kevin is
觉。
clearly building up that
哇操。
Mewtwo and Mew, and the last thing you
因为
want
他
is
是要
for
拼那个
Tord. Now he's got a
Mimikyu
bench space to go. Galarian Zigzagoon, and now it's pointless.
Yeah.
That's wasted energy. So no, I really like this play from Kevin. I think the Mimikyu there was absolutely the right one to go for, and Kevin is really making life difficult for Tord in this series. It seems like a lot of what Kevin's game plan is slowing down Tord. It's not the Victini we've seen in the
干
past
这
where
个
it's,
超梦在看他
I'm chasing down your V's and smashing.
感觉
It's,
对面没有
oh,
带
there
加
goes
起
your
耶。
draw engine. There goes your Mimikyu, and just picking away at Tord's game plan, and frankly, it's working.
Yeah, and he's got himself in a position
看
now.
下
where he
面
can
这个
easily
老
deal
大
with
随便来的
pretty much， anything
老大，
in
老
Tord's
大，老
active
大，老
position.
大。
The Heatran can yoink a bunch of energies, and the Mewtwo's hitting for weakness. So he's built a really robust board. He has the Cricketune against any stamp players coming in as well. So Tord has a difficult time of finding answers here. He's had a couple of turns off, just Gormandizing. Can he finally get something working here and getting damage into play?
敢透的还有带超梦加那个符龙，那铁人上跟他打也没有挺好打，他可以穿盾
Now he
狗。
can use the bigger attack on the Urshifu with a rapid strike energy. Now the wondrous labyrinth has gone away. That could start softening up some Pokemon. Could KO the Volcanion if he wanted. Could go for what he was doing in the previous game, hitting into Victini or Cricketune or whatever. But as it stands at the moment, I think Tord just really needs to start getting some damage on the board. Doesn't need to start taking prizes. Urshifu doesn't necessarily need to do that, but needs to get something going here.
He's going to scoop up net his Mewtwo once again. Going to continue to scoop up net, actually. Also going to pick up the Snorlax. We'll see if he can actually launch any attacks here. Minchino is going to replace that board slot.
干回收网
See
这
if
样
there's
子
any
用
energy
的
off this Marnie. At the very least, he could
他
just
透
use
着
the
怎么
Karate
连
Belt
一拳
for
都还没打，
150.
到底在思考什么？
Going to see the Giant Hearth now remove an Urshifu V from his hand. Just to reset the deck, possibly. And then the Marnie.
Yeah, I mean, 150, and as far as poking goes, 150 is a pretty aggressive poke.
Yeah.
马起来又
It's a
有老
pretty good one.
大，
It's the spiritual reprint of Glissapod GX that was such a playable card for so many years. Actually, a card that Tord knows very well. Played it alongside Zoroark for a few big tournaments to great success. We finally do see energy. It's actually the Rapid Strike energy, so there is the option to GMAX Rapid Flow this turn.
Would be a nice option. The problem with that is it's hard
是
to
不是
hit
要
the
先
VMAX
上去
doing
120、
that.
120啊？
150 plus 150 and a
先给
Galarian
超梦
Zigzagoon,
120。
There's your KO. 150, 120 leaves you 40
120
damage
120
short, but you could go after some multiple prizes, go after the Cricketune, etc. Could even put the 120 onto Mewtwo and Mew, knowing that it is then just 150 away from being KO'd. Like we've said, that 120 plus 150 being absolutely crucial on these tag team GXs. So that might be a route Tord wants to go here. It's just hard to get the Victini.
Yeah, I think certainly the Mewtwo has to get tagged here, and possibly the Cricketune as well if you're once again looking for stamp win conditions.
That's
So I
my
think
bet.
he's starting to fall behind a little bit. That could easily be the route here.
They're the two I'm eyeing up, the Cricketune and the Mewtwo and Mew. It's obviously not an easy decision, you know. Tord's taken a while to think about it. This is not an obvious decision, but I think your draw engine and your bigger spread. The Victini VMAX, it hurts to ignore it. You don't want to ignore it, but actually goes for the prize, and obviously the Mewtwo and Mew, that was a given.
他不打算理那两只比克提尼的。
It's part of your path. It means that Kevin gets instantly punished if he
他
has
哪
to
算哪
get a
3-2
change or Crobat out to dig here this turn. But as it stands, Kevin's got like a
那
nice.
奇怪，刚才不是没龙接攻啊？怎么龙
He's
接
already
攻
got
都
two
上来了？
Victini VMAX
我
powered
刚才
up.
就有了
The。Mewtwo could be coming in if he
刚才
wanted
是没
to.
老
There's
大
an air balloon on top here as well. So we could be seeing Welder, even to Heatran here at this point. Or just onto Mewtwo just for the one.
龙一个
and then
舒服
manually attach somewhere else on the board. Air balloon out of the VMAX and just go with the Mewtwo.
龙下
swing
去
here.
是不是直接秒
I
啦
think？you've got a Mewtwo swing. You just take out the VMAX, and then you're down to one prize remaining, which is awkward because has Tord played his reset stamp?
One's gone, but he does play 2 copies.
That's what I thought. So he does have a reset stamp still available. but it's not the same as last game. Because if
刚他现在
Todd
只是
attacks
怕
with a
被
Mewtwo
印章
and
啊
Sorry, if Kevin attacks a Mewtwo and Mew, and then Todd gets
干
a
这
KO
两
and
边
reset
真
stamps,
真拿奖
there
励
are
都是
two
让对方拿很
Victini
痛苦的，
established,
然后想办法印
and a
章。
Cricketune to draw cards, which is a just much different game to where we were last time. So I think here, take the KO with Mewtwo and Mew. I don't think reset stamp is quite as terrifying as it could be in some other circumstances.
No, because Tord has to deal with the Mewtwo, and then the Cricketune is just going to sit there and at least top up, back up to 4. So Kevin's
来
got a really
喷
robust
160
board here,
哦，
and he can easily take a KO using the Flare Strike. You keep the option open to then Hot Burn GX, so the Heatran is also kind of able to get in there if Kevin's able to piece together any Fire Crystals. So I believe he's out of Fire Energies in his deck now, only 9 cards remaining in there.
Yeah, so I think that's absolutely the way to go. It's a great option, down to 1 card and actually pulled 2 Dedenne. So we see in his hand at the moment he's got 2 Dedenne and a Quick Ball. All of them are going to be in his deck.
线上版田仓跟速效太猖狂了，
Along
芙蓉是
and Kevin really
芙
is
蓉是
down
一
to
定要
just
带
if he hits the boss's orders, which we know
只是
he's
无
got
极
in
有
his
芙蓉也
hand,
不见得能
he
赢
can just go
他好
after the
像拿回来的手
Gino.
段只有朋友
Can
手
Todd
势，
really
我有看过他没有
double
带。
scoop up net both of them away like he did last game?
And even then, there's the Hot Burn that can even deal with the
干这个
Dedenne,
上面
which
如
can't
果
be scoop up netted.
拼到印章的话，
there's no denial this way around.
下面头也是很痛的，因为滑上来超梦就死了。
He's going to start off with a Quick Ball, get rid of a Third Keeper. You're going to see a Mind Report Mewtwo coming in that he can instantly make do. So it might be that he's going for another Marnie play here. Just Marnie, Gale Thrust, and Hope.
Yeah, the options are not
现在就是
good
要
for
阻止
Tor,
下
you
面
know.
有老
Tor's
大，
such a good player. We like to sit here
所以
and
上
go,
面是肯
"Oh,
定
he's
要印
planning
章的，
something,"
没印
but
章肯定是
I think at this stage
塞
of
尤
the
娜娜
game,
的
he's。down by 4 prizes. And the thing that Kevin has done so beautifully this game is his board. He's got Cricketune there with the air balloon. He's got 2 Victini VMAX, both of which have the double energy on. He's managed to
上面
make
没
use
印
of the
章怎么
Mewtwo
看
and
都要
Mew,
输，
and it
如
was
果
a
没印
little
章。
play, but using boss's orders to take out that Mimikyu earlier in the game was such a
他没有
huge
先
play
下超
to
梦，
keep that to keep the Mewtwo and Mew on board
在
in
绿
terms
牌
of
哦
being able to be used. We are getting to the stage here where Tord, is there any way back for him?
再抽一次再下超梦吗？
I'm not sure outside of take a KO, reset stamp, and cross your fingers.
Yeah, that's where we're at by the looks of things.
他这边就算把小只的都回收网
That
掉，
late game stage when the reset
对面
stamp
只要老大
ruins
喜
all
多
your
兰跟
plans,
西
the
四能
Cricketune
开局差一
gets
样
you
会结
straight
束。
back into a good spot a lot of the time. And as you say, his hand right now, Kevin's, is just full of outs. So his deck has very few non-usable cards at this stage.
To Cricketune and get up to 4 cards in hand and whiff all the outs, that would be unlikely is the polite way to say it. I do think Kevin, it's not unlosable, but he really has got this game on lockdown at this stage. So we do see the Marnie coming down from Tord. That is going to lower Kevin's hand size. We could obviously see a recess stamp following after this. Oh no.
It's just from the Mewtwo right now. It's going to get Make Dude, so he
Okay.
can play that Marnie. It's about to come down. Don't worry about it.
I was like, wait, I saw the Marnie. Where's the Marnie? But it was. I was too far ahead of myself.
You see the Rapid Strike energy, so a Gale Frost will certainly knock out this active Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX. Tord can scoop up at the
到
Mewtwo
底
now.
到底有没有
Marnie
印
himself
章？有没有
into
印章？
a different supporter. No,
是
he's
玛
gonna
丽
keep the
哦，
option
玛丽
open
就
for
不
Mewtwo
好
later
说了
on
呢。
and just get
下面一个
himself
北
a fresh
砰砰
five.，
下面好像
Kevin
北
out
砰
of
砰
boss's
丢了
orders。for now, but still a number of cards for
还
Kevin
有
to
老
go
大
over the
吗？
line
干又有老大！
Oh,
There's the boss's
hit-
哦，印章哦！
there's a reset
啊，不要老
stamp
大，
to
拜托
one.
下面不要老
Tord
大
will，try again.
我不要再看到
Down
世
to
界奇迹。
Cricketune now.
Oh,
Oh, that's huge. That's amazing.
Yeah. 'cause we
Sure.
know there are Dedenne in Kevin's deck. and
Sure.
Whatever he draws. So, I suppose you Cricketune up to 4.
干你娘的！
You
现在
wait
全
for
世
the
界都会防印章
Dedenne,
哎。
Then you Cricketune to draw 3 cards. And if you don't hit it, then you play Dedenne. This is... Yeah, this is great here.
You can half and hold the Quick Ball if you have Crobat and Dedenne in the deck as well.
You absolutely can. Yeah, and you do. So
两个老
either
大
of those is fine. But drawing 3 off Cricketune,
抽3
knowing
张
you've got
东
the
东
Quick
鼠
Ball，ready
我
to
觉得抽
go,
3张就有了。
He can whiff. I think it's not statistically guaranteed, but
好，
oh,
对
there
对
the
不对
boss？
是
and
不
the
是是
Dedenne
84
and the
结
Quick
束
Ball,
了
and Kevin is
结
gonna take
束
the
了
2-1
啊！
victory, and we see Urshifu
所以我们
go
带那
down.
个
That is Well, Victini is going
音箱帅，好，就是在防印章啊。
Then we see Urshifu going down. Kevin Kruger takes the narrow 2-1 victory, heads on through the winners bracket.
Yeah, really well played from Kevin there. Really was able to establish such a robust board. That
Oh
anything
my
the board
God.
could do, sort of comeback-wise, was really shut off from him, threatening on so many fronts. There was the Heatran there was the Mewtwo there. Identifying the Mimikyu as the only sort of roadblock to those easy prizes was taken out early with the boss's orders. So
感重点是下面他们两个都有在防印章的牌，我觉得这种防印章的牌好鸡掰哦。因为他们那个紫月选手啊，实在是太会控奖励了。他奖励控一控，印章通常都蛮有几率爆开的。啊，这个真的是牛逼，牛的一逼！各位，牛的一逼，抄起来，抄牌抄起来。那下面有没有家庭喷啊？
He had some turns where it didn't really go his way. Too many turns of having
有的话，我们要先拿身价出来打。
And frankly, Kevin foiled him throughout that series. He kept going right. Here is what Tord needs, and now he doesn't have it anymore.
好啦，各位，晚安啊！我们明天再来把那个什么我连防都不用防。但我觉得，我跟你讲，从这一次的比赛，我学到，绝对要带牌防印章，绝对要，因为现在没人不放印章。好，我们可以开睡了，热血开睡。那你们没有睡的继续看啊。然后我起来了之后，应该会把剩下的比赛把它补一补。啊，这个可以学很多。 那这个真的可以学很多，但你们一定要毛起来看，这个真的是神仙打架，一直打架，真我这边也有败部哦，所以败部都还有机会哦。
That we're going to be showcasing. We did show Azul earlier a couple of rounds ago.
是败部的8强。
Urshifu VMAX archetype, and he's coming up against a pretty interesting deck from Federico. He's going to be playing that Spiritomb Spikemuth combo.
I love.
我干，我花眼怪。
It's one I have played around with a lot.
干，我怎么觉得这场又要看了啊？啊，带花眼怪也太奇葩了吧！啊，左边那个人什么名号都没有会不会很猛啊？不行，我要睡觉了。我跟你讲，我至少要躺在床上看着这场，然后看到睡着。明天要家教，绝对要睡觉。离你啊！我剩4个小时可以睡，我绝对要睡觉，各位晚安，各位晚安。精彩的比赛，请你们继续看下去。你别来困啊 ！Good night。